Right, this is going to be the second episode of the Best Damn League show for this split, but it's actually going to be one with a different format, which is I'm going to bring the format from Snake and Banter, which you might know in Counter-Strike, what I do with Maui Snake. So obviously I didn't call it Snake something because the snake refers to Maui Snake. And what I thought I'd do is, it's just a really good format he actually came up with, which is instead of doing what normal Best Damn League show was, which was nearly always just a co-host, used to be Dom, or a rotating guest host, essentially. And then we would just, depending on the time, we would run through all the teams, or we'd run through like 8 teams, and then I'd pick 2 that were like crap and go, we're not talking about them until they win a game. So the problem with that is, one, every podcast does that now. And then 2, I actually think in a weird way, it makes it quite hard for the flow of the conversation, because you go from like an amazing conversation about one team to like, you almost have to go through like the dredge through a team no one really has anything to talk about with. So instead, the format, if people don't know, is simple. There are 3 rounds in the show. There is the good point, the bad point, and the ugly. And we do it in that order, the good, the bad, the ugly, like the classic Western movie. And essentially what we do is, the first one's the good, and then it'll start with the guest, then it'll go to Peter, then it'll come to me. We have a little bit of discussion in between each. Then after the good, we do the bad, we do the ugly. You get the point. So you'll learn the premise as we go. The good thing about it, though, the reason I do it is because I think the way it structures the show is really good. Because, for example, it means our guest Initialise here is going to bring 3 points. And technically, Peter doesn't know them. I know them because I have to check that no one has the same point. But Peter doesn't know what they are. For all they know, could be something interesting he's never thought of. Similarly, Initialise doesn't know Peter's points. They could be anything all over the place. No one knows my points, but that's just the way I like to keep it. And also, spoiler, I'll just let you behind the Wizard of Oz style behind the curtain. Sometimes I just make my points up on the fly. I can do that. Listen, you have to understand, I've got that brain where flame just comes out of it naturally.
He's quite smug, isn't he, Peter?
I am.
Just a little bit.
Listen, all I'm going to tell you is this, mate. I don't say I'm the best because I'm just the best. I've done about 100 times more episodes than anyone else. So, like, I hope I would be the best right now. It'd be pretty crap if I wasn't. So, exactly. I've grinded the most, essentially. So, let's do it. We will start, obviously, the guest for this episode. By the way, quick detail as well. This might become iconic, so clip this in the future. Technically, Peter is going to be the permanent co-host. He's always going to be here. He's going to be the Maui Snake in this scenario. And then the guest will always be the third person. Now, I did say with that, he obviously has a young child and he has technically retired from esports. Hence why he did that straight fire tell-all, by the way. But there might be a world where he can't do a week, or he has to actually say no. But as I told him on DM, I think I phrased it perfectly, Peter. I said, look, he's not like a fucking teammate. You're not committed for the split. Like, if you have to bail, it's just a podcast. We can refigure it out. You haven't, like, violated some treaty if you do that. So don't worry about that. We're going to make it work, though. It's probably going to be each Friday, but we're going to make this work. And obviously, give me, before we get into it, what do you think of that, Peter, being the permanent co-host? You down to do it?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds fun. Looking forward to some good banter fairly soon.
Yeah.
I admit my Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays are pretty packed, but Fridays and the weekend, let's get into some LEC.
Yeah, and also, I thought in a weird way, Peter could obviously be the sort of like sunshine casting through the darkness of my jaded exterior where no one will ever match up to Froggen's laning or Perks' macro, all the greats of the game. So, and then for our guest for this one, it is Initialise, who, listen, I'm going to do this because I'm Thorin, but it's also a little lesson in your career. It goes like this. If things are going better, in the future I'll go, you might know him from Broadcast X, Broadcast Y. Instead, I'm going to do what must suck. It's Nymeira's brother. Now, listen, that's not my fault. That's just the reality. I'm not the one making that joke. Reality made that joke. But that's how people are going to know you. People, by the way, you also have obviously appeared on Nymeira's stream loads, and you've done plenty of casting yourself. It's just maybe you're not as well known as him at this point in time.
No, not quite yet. I started casting with him. He is, in fact, my younger brother by about a year or so.
Oh, that's even worse.
No, exactly. I'm strictly
right.
number one. And yet he still managed to, exceed me. But he chose the analyst route, I chose the play-by-play route, and clearly the high road this time around going to Scotland a bit faster. So there you go.
Right, okay.
I'll get there.
Yeah. By the way, just to check at the beginning, are you brothers where you're both like very much simpatico on the same page? Do you have similar thoughts? Do you have really different opinions? Like, for example, people know like the bingo of what his shit is like. Bringing up irrelevant LGL players that no one gives a fuck about, going on about every game Faker ever played, pretending he actually like knows the kit of Ari in a way no one. Do you have similar beats you hit? Are you different?
We are relatively similar, at least in terms of like There is a certain shared brain cell element to our humor at the very least.
Okay.
So like, there's a real problem. That one of the first things we had to learn when we were casting is like there are a lot of inside jokes.
Oh,
we're like
right.
So it's like we'll go for a joke and it's like there will be like a dumb inside reference that we'll make on cast and it'll make the other one crack up and it's fine for us, but everyone else is going, "What the fuck did you guys just say?
Right.
Where did this come from?"
Yes.
And there is definitely that element. I'm generally a little bit more happy-go-lucky. And a little bit more laissez-faire, whereas Alex is a little bit more structured and he's an analyst by trade, right? So he's a little bit more on that pedantic front, wants to get things right when he's going for the casting stuff, whereas I can be a little bit more hyperbolous. And I went the English literature route in university, he went the physics route, and so that kind of stuff plays up in the way we cast a little bit too, because I tend to be more on the romantic narrative end, he tends to go more the why the hell have you done this? Well, it's so silly.
Here's the thing, even though you just said that to describe it, that's got me a bit hyped there, Peter. That sounded like, okay, fucking bring it then. Let's go fucking full Byron and Shelley on this bitch. Okay.
I used to live down the road from Byron's Manor, not even joking, in one of his houses in the UK countryside. So there you go.
I mean, all I'll say is this LEC split has been a really, really good split for revenge, you know? People coming back, not against their own team, so let's go in.
Yeah, right, let's start then. As I say, we always start with the guest. We start with the good. We start with the best. So what is the good point that you're bringing to the show, Initialise?
I want to talk about Caliste actually living up to the hype, stepping up from tier 2 to tier 1. He has actually delivered. There was a very real world where he steps up and he was just mediocre. How many times we've seen them for ERL players with all this hype behind them turn up and be okay or bad for a while and have to earn their wings at LEC level. And he's turned up and kicked ass. His numbers are fantastic. He's styling on people. There's this incredible clip behind the scenes where Yike was asking how the hell did you know you'd win that 1v2 as a Draven versus a Caliste Rel? And he goes, well, the Caliste didn't have mana. I clicked on the Calliste's head and saw she didn't have mana for Rend because I clicked on the profile to see whether she had mana left, and I knew I could outplay it from there. And those kind of heads up, really elite level decision making and micro moments about, I know this person doesn't have this mana, I can trust myself to outplay this, is remarkable. And he's come in and done that, and that's very impressive because if he had failed, oh boy, were there a lot of anti-Carmine Core fans out there just waiting for him to faceplant. And there probably are still a few out there. But right now, the prince who was promised is delivering.
What do you think, Peter?
For sure. I mean, definitely, this is a guy, people are still waiting for him to fail, by the way.
Yeah, of course.
Just wait until he has a bad best of 3. But I mean, one of the advantages of working on teams is sometimes you hear things, you see things, right? And obviously, he was on that roster with Saken and Syncroft and Kabashad, with the 1EU Masters. And if you, for whatever reason, had access to the voice comms from those, with games, it was really, really clear. The number, obviously, Syncroft, he's a jungler. He's the one who was making the majority of the comms. But this guy, he's a rookie. He's playing with Saken and Kabashad, who are they both played LEC, EU LCS before. And he's the one who's making a lot of the calls. Right. He's the one who's making a lot of the macro decisions. And he could do that and play at this really, really high level. For me, I've only seen an AD carry. The only AD carry that I've seen that could do something like this is Kazi. And there's even the top AD carries in the league right now, they're not shot calling the games in the same way that this guy's doing. So he's got a really, really insane mind for the game. And yeah, his mechanics are holding up. It's really, really it's good to see because whilst it's fun to laugh at people failing to match up to the hype, sometimes you need that 10% of people to actually meet the hype. Otherwise,
someone needs to make it.
Yeah. Not least, by the way, because that then allows people to hype other people. If everyone just did the sort of Checker-Lad thing and then came up and then went straight back down and was forgotten forever, or Rika actually, who recently has come back, maybe that's a revenge story, then yeah, it actually would mean you never could hype anyone. And unfortunately, that is actually the world that people like Peter fought against. Because the old world was, here's the thing, I think we need a happy medium we don't have yet. I'll give you the obvious examples. It is insane to me there can ever be splits without Trimby, Crowley, Jizuki. If you think any of these people suck, you just don't know League of Legends. They could all go in solo queue now and be top 10 on EU and be matched up with all the best players. So that's the one where I think people go too far. The joke it is, if you're gambling on a mid laner and it's he's probably going to be better than Jizuki, it's I'm going to go ahead and say no, he isn't going to be. I'm sorry, he just isn't. That's or Trimby, probably not. I'm sorry, just not going to happen. But if you want to take the one that's just a really old name that's not very good anymore, gamble on that one. Yeah, especially if you're in a smaller org, that makes sense. Don't worry though, we'll get to that point later. I'll go through everything everyone said. On the point about the epic 1v2 mechanical outplayer, that is also one of the coolest things, is because I think a thing that's very underrated is a lot of the people who came up, by the way, even when we say hype, we mean people in the RLs knew they were good. This guy was properly hyped. This guy got the you are the next Caps hype. And I can tell you what, that alone could crush a player. It's not even about whether you're actually a bad player. That alone could get in your head. Because, by the way, you're playing Caps eventually. You're playing upset all these people that you've already been told you're as good as or better than. And then actually, I definitely agree on the style. The reason the profile click one is so dope is one, it's one of those ones where you probably know this from back in the day. It used to be more of a Reddit thing way back where there was way more actual clips of outplayers. And the classic Reddit thing, it doesn't matter, even if it was Chovy or fucking Prime Deft or Uzia, the famous thing on Reddit was all the comments were like, well, you know, he was 2 levels up, and also like he could also have dodged the E, and actually I would have flashed it. And you're just like, bro, you wouldn't do any of that because you've not only have you never played at the highest level, you've never played versus other really good players who just clap you if you do a mistake. So even though in theory everyone could click on the profile and see the man, he's doing all that while he's moving and fucking people are coming in on the screen and people are shot calling and stuff like that. People don't know that, like the presence of mind to be able to do that, then make a decision, instantly do it, execute, and then at the end do the flash. Like that is what is fucking bonkers. It's like the thing where Faker does all the F keys that LS told everyone to fucking 10 years ago, where he watches all the lanes at the same time, hence why he's like a macro god, even though he's also playing mid lane. People, in theory, anyone could do that. You can go to practice server now and do that, right? Here's the problem. Go into your promos and do that, bro. You will very quickly, 10 minutes in, either just die constantly while you're looking around the lanes, or you just won't do the function keys anymore. Hence why, and I'll always give this example, Mikyx got to about the highest level a Western player can get. I think he played locked cam, and he never used to press the fucking F keys. So that's how I know he's a genius, because he just sort of looked on the minimap and stuff. That is even more bonkers, mate. So I will not underrate that at all. Look, I will just say, technically no one can live up to the hype when your hype is you are the little prince of esports. People still don't get this. Listen, fucking Dota clone fans, you're in your little bubble. I'm in esports. When you say esports, what that means is, say I take the absolute, like the fucking Mount Rushmore of esports. We've got like fucking Flash. It depends who you want, which game. Like, I don't know, Rafa, fucking Simple. Then we're going to put Faker, right? Your logic would be, he's like next in line. Bro, he hadn't even played an LEC game. So look, he had a great first 2 weeks. I'm not giving him that status. In League,
that's fair.
What they should have done, but it's just not a sexier headline, is like the little prince of French League of Legends, French esports could be a good angle. That's plausible. He could actually live up to that within a year if he does an awesome rookie campaign. Or I could believe that's possible. You want to say something, Peter?
Or the Promise Prince, something
that's
like that.
That's not a bad one.
To meet that level of hype, I mean, basically he has to win.
Yeah, no, by the way, you're right. They should actually have done a Song of Ice and Fire. What you should have said was the prince that was promised, that type of thing. That's dope, because then it's even implied it's not now, it's to come, isn't it?
Yeah.
So fairness, that was what we were using back in the Mere Masters in summer when we were hyping up them, because he with all of the people like Syncroft and stuff leaving like then, he then became the leader and de facto shot caller again. So he did it sort of again. And again, they fumbled a little bit, but the team wasn't quite as good. But he has kind of been doing that. So the thing is that the French fans have understandably gone for the snappier name, the more romantic name, as was the tone we've been using. Going for the big hype, and there's some fun to that. But you're right, it's way out of line when you're like, is he Flash? Really? Are we there?
No.
Not quite, but the fun is still there, and I think it is now. It's cool to see that at least for now, he's delivering on the hype. There's still playoffs to go. There's still failures to go. We're 2 weeks in. It could all fall apart. How many times have we seen that? But so far, so good.
Also, I'll just say this. Look, I do think actually, though, here's what's genius, Peter, because this reminds me a bit of like how you've brought people into teams, but with a twist. They haven't gone for, we actually sort of bottleneck you in the game so you can't fuck up. They're actually doing the opposite. They're unleashing this guy from game one. But what they've done that I think is really smart, and this is how you know nobody watches the RLs except French players. Everyone says they watch the RLs. You all say you watch the EU Masters. I didn't see a single comment when the off-season was announced that this was the roster where anyone acknowledged who isn't French. You do know they've just paired him with his coach and his support from the LFL. Like, that is a genius way to make someone feel comfortable. They're already going to know how you play, how you want to play, what your limits are. Nobody mentioned that. Instead, I saw all this stuff about, he's with Targamas. Why is Targamas still saying? bro, there's a reason why. There's an elephant in the room on this one. So I actually like the setup, because that's the other thing about the fact he's living up to the hype. He is not playing safe and conservative and for KDA. He is actually playing already, like he said, like some Hillasang shit. Like, he is going in for all the angles. He's already done essentially like the swag fucking. I said my joke was in week 1, he did like the equivalent of Faker versus Nagne's fucking Cassiopeia, where he was like sidestepping shit. Like, bro, you're in week 1. You're in week 1. This guy's so look. I love it, because not only is he a stud, it seems like the team gets it and they've sort of set him up. So yeah, let's keep it rolling. I'm with you. It's a good point.
I mean, should I go into my point?
If you want.
Since we're glazing.
All right.
So my good point was, KC GMing, and this is something that I didn't get from last year, and something clicked, because they had the interview where Yike was interviewed after the G2 game. And coming to the season, I was really, really concerned about KC, because I thought, okay, they've got these 2 rookies in their carry roles. They have a top laner that doesn't speak English. He not fluent in English. They have Tagamas, who is he speaks more, but he's not like a primary shot caller. And they have Yike, who's traditionally done better as like the number 2 caller on the team. And I was thinking, what this roster doesn't in terms of how it functions, it doesn't make sense. And then Yike did his interview where he said that he was surprised when he came in, and Vladdy and Caliste immediately were like, they've been playing pro for like forever. They knew all of the small things. They weren't afraid to call of these small things. Obviously, he defended Tagamas too, but sure. We'll put that to one side. But then it clicked, because what they did last year was they were initially intending to promote Caliste, and they were intending to stagger the promotion of their rookies, a bit like what EG did back in the day, right? Where you promote one guy first, you promote the first rookie first, which in this case was Vladdy, but was supposed to be Caliste, but LEC changed the age requirement, so he was too young to play. So then they thought, okay, so what I think was supposed to happen is Caliste was supposed to come in. He was supposed to be the primary shot caller. You have Bo, who's not going to be a primary shot caller, right? You've removed Syncroft, so Caliste has to fill that role. But then at the last minute, Caliste isn't old enough. So they can't do their project. They have to bring Upset in, who's not going to be a primary shot caller. And then they bring Vladdy in the summer, and they've adapted. So now Vladdy had the chance to learn his trade, aside from Caliste, whilst Caliste was basically the leader of the LFL team. And now you bring them both up together, and they're both LEC ready. And it just clicked for me, because I'll say this, obviously Mac, I respect Mac a lot, but Reha, if you ask me, who is the best team building coach in the LEC, I will say it's Reha. And you look at what KC have done. They have the lowest budget last year in the league. This year, I think they're like the 7th or the 8th highest budget, and yet there's no question that their team is a top, right? Like you can say, are they the best team? Are they the second best team? Are they the third best team? But they are a top 3 team, and they've done this by developing rookies and putting the right structure around these rookies to succeed, and that deserves a huge amount of credit, because by all rights, Caliste and Vladdy shouldn't be this good, in terms of game understanding this early. You look at people like Lot, you look at people like Nako, you look at Kamilu, Carlson, right? They're making a lot of rookie mistakes. They're getting caught in side lanes, or they're falling for a bush trap or something like this. But you're not seeing Vladdy do that, and you're not seeing Caliste do that, and that is, to me, a mark of good GMing, a mark of good team building, in my opinion.
If I can jump on that a little bit.
Oh, yeah, it's your turn.
Because I've got an anecdote with Vladdy in particular. So obviously I was casting when he was first starting out back in NLC a couple years ago. And he was playing with another Greek top laner called Empiros, who was Jax Blank at the time, who basically played Jax and Gangplank. And Vladdy was this kind of guy who was still really raw, but really mechanically fantastic. But the thing that really, really impressed us was the guy's drive, and he's learned a lot since, and Peter's just talking about all those kind of extra bits that have come in terms of the traps he's not falling for. But I'm not surprised he's got there so fast, because I have seen very, very few people that driven. This is a guy whose internet would die at his place in his tiny little village, and he would cycle over an hour to get to a nearby PC cafe to play competitive matches and try and scrim, because he just couldn't do it at home. That he wanted this so badly. He was doing this at 16, at 17, literally getting on a bike and well, I can't get there any other way. I am damn well playing. I'm getting on a bike. And those are the kind of stories that were coming out. And I'm probably exaggerating a touch because I don't remember the exact details, but that's the kind of player he has been. That's the kind of drive he has. And if you get that on a team with someone like Yike, who was the second place shot caller, was on G2 where after his rookie year and they weren't keeping with the training wheels on, they took him off and the lanes were demanding more of him and he was pulled all over the place and didn't have the force of personality or tenure, I think, to say, no, I want to do the game this way, which sometimes you need to do as a jungle. He's got that on Karmine Core now with players who are hungry and there to join with him. With Targamas, who doesn't feel like he's shrinking back into himself and being quiet and non-communicative and really struggling to link with the team and all of those complaints we were having over the last couple of years. That's really good synergy, and I completely agree with the GMing, but part of that is getting some players who really, really, really want this and are really willing to work with people. I think Vladdy is one of the top people on the list for that. Some of the stories I have, as I said, about him doing everything in his power to be able to play the game is pretty ridiculous.
For sure.
Right, on a few things here. First of all, I'll do the Targamas one first, because what's funny is people are going to know this is the dichotomy of Thorin. Because if you go back to 2022, I was all over Targamas because I was like, bro, considering he gave up Mikyx, like that's not, as we'll get to later in the show, that's supposed to never work. And actually, it wasn't like he was as good as Mikyx was, but he was very good fucking first year in the LEC. And you saw, because at the time, this is what was interesting, because at the time, anyone with eyes can see Flackhead isn't the Spanish Uzi eye. He's just like a competent player who knows his role, doesn't step too much out of his bounds, as it were, and only would try and do the heavy carry performance if he was on the right champion that was able to do it in there. He never forced the game. So a lot of people saw Flackhead, and that was more like where they were like, oh, is this a G2 player? But then you saw Targamas, and that style allowed him to do a bunch of roams, and he gets a bunch of players off, and it looked like, funnily enough, this is obviously aged badly now, but I think he might come back in this team. At the time, he looked like a brain support, like a guy who's actually doing some sick players. Now, I will say, then he had the terrible years. The XL one was a nightmare. By the way, there's something weird about these orgs, because the Karmine Core one makes no sense. The XL one, I get why you released that VOD, because Targamas was going anyway, so it was a way to offload responsibility that when people heard him, you were like, oh, he's the reason why he didn't talk in that voice comms where they put that fucking mega long one out at the end of the season. And then the Karmine Core one's the weirdest one ever, though. Why would you ever release the voice comms in that one? Because you wanted to keep him, so I'll never get that one, because it's like both teams essentially threw him under the bus by showing you the comms of players. I can tell you, there's other players, by the way, who are even good players who sometimes never come, and sometimes don't come really important things. Let's say one of them was a Swedish ADC who also played for a G2 1 point. Oh, no, that can't be true. Yeah, well, you'll find out soon. So, yeah, on that one, right, I think what you need to do is this. I then obviously said he was trash in 2023 and 2024. So now their brains are broken. How can I possibly say it's okay for him to be in the team now? Because to me, that's clearly an insane example of a player who needs a specific environment. Then their skills come out to play. There are certain players that if they don't have that, then not everyone can play with everyone. It's why I'll give you two angles here. Think about who he had his success with when he was in G2, right? He had Flackhead. By the way, Flackhead has now shown he can play with any fucking support of any style in League of Legends. He'll make it work. That guy, there's something about that guy, actually. I can tell now a lot of like his positive qualities aren't necessarily just in his hands or on the screen. There are other things about the team environment. Also, I've heard, by the way, he's also like mega, like sort of long-suffering type character who can handle the slings and arrows, as it were. By the way, I've never seen him go and do a Nor and go mental on people on Twitter where they're saying he's crap. He just fucking shuts up, puts his hard hat on and goes to work. Then also, everyone forgets this. Everyone loves to tell me I don't know how League works. And then everyone judges every role in isolation. So here's the thing. Yes, you all understand support has to work with ADC. Did you not watch League of Legends since Mata and Dandy? The support has to work with the jungler. Yeah. Look at the junglers he was with. So you had Cersei. By the way, Peter's fucking problem child. One of the most idiosyncratic junglers to ever play League. The joke is even he doesn't know who he is because he still thinks he's like a super gank heavy. Just shot. No. I have eyes and a fucking stopwatch. You aren't that, but okay. I get it. I know what type of person you are. You can be good, but not the sort of person I'd put with a rookie, by the way, who's just gonna who doesn't talk. Like that sounds like a nightmare. Then let's go to the next team. Then when he had success, by the way, he was just with Yankos. You know, the player that every single teammate says is like the greatest jungler and greatest teammate and jungler and greatest comms jungler as a teammate. Give me a fucking break. Like, well, that's essentially, of course, you're going to look awesome playing with that guy. And another person, by the way, absolutely willing to be unselfish, help people, cater to their needs. After Cersei, He went straight to Bo, who I'm going to tell you, if you're going to laugh at Targamas, here's the bad part about Bo, and none of us said it publicly because we were giving him time. He doesn't speak English. In fact, are you ready for the fucking straight fire bomb that I'm going to drop for you now? I've heard it's worse. I've heard towards the end he didn't even fucking bother with the lessons anymore, mate. I heard he just sort of gave up. Well, the problem is, none of it's a lie. It is true, and Scrims, that guy was like the most mechanically insane player ever. But if you can't fucking speak as a jungler, and then your support's silent, this is why... Even though I'll acknowledge he didn't play great, my boy Opset was in fucking prison, bro. He was on some fucking Rorschach shit. He was just like in max security and there's no help whatsoever. His jungler and his fucking support don't talk in the game. And as pointed out, Opset was never actually, despite this weird rep from Schalke, he was never the guy like Uzi, like call the whole game around me now, come here, right? If he has a lead and he has an items, he'll tell like I want a group now or let's fight now or something. But he also expects other people to do stuff. ADC is fucking clicking at the end of the day. It's not the shot calling role, no matter what people say. So I actually think the Targabas ones was never as bad as people thought. I was willing to give it a chance. It's working so far. On the other ones, I can go pretty quickly. The Canna one, I even said when he joined this team in the summer, like everyone who's going like, oh, he's shit and washed. It's like, oh, he was shit and washed for T1 standards, for fuck's sake. Did you ever watch that guy play? He obviously could play like a Renekton carry lane. I watched him doing a bunch of His main problem is this. He was on 2 franchises that wanted to be world champions. T1, he wasn't as good as Zeus, so they booted him. And he was replacing Naguri and Khan for fuck's sake on D+. Like, again, these are the biggest shoes in the world to fill. But he is clearly a good player, and he's another one of these players, like Thanatos in the LCS. Or they just have the hands, bro. When they've got the hands like that, they're going to be decent as long as they have a normal 1v1 match, when they're not playing some region where they know how to gank tops, or not the LEC. And then Vladdy, his only problem last year is someone called Jackies did sort of what he did, but a little bit better, so he got all the shine. And remember, this guy, especially because the joke was, the momentum of Carmine Corp's a meme, meant people wanted them to be a meme in summer. Jackie's actually was mega, and Vladdy was like, if he hadn't have existed, he'd be like, oh, look at this mid laner. Who? What the fuck? Where'd they found this guy? Definitely keep this guy. So solos are legit. These solos are actually like, fuck LEC level. They're like top half of LEC, mate. They're actually low-key. These are like banger shrewd moves. And I've got to say, as you say on the fucking point about the salary, by the way, all the other teams can tell me now they thought Vladdy was great. Bro, he'd be on your team if that was true. He'd be on Fnatic right now. He'd be on all these orgs that have more money. Because guys, yes, Karmi Corp has money, but they had to pay a lot for the fucking slot. And they've signed like 2 or 3 rosters and cycled through and failed super teams. So that's why they have to be budget now. But the joke is, that's how I know Peter's point is right. The GM has to be killing it because he's got the budget roster and it's actually way better than all the fucking super teams. He's killed it. And then on the Yike one, by the way, I agree with you, Initialise. Essentially, what you have to see now is, he obviously sometimes wants to be the farm jungler and wants to be the one who has the say when he comes. Now he has all that, mate. He's actually the veteran player in this team. So no, I agree with you, Peter. I think it's a bagger. I think they've done a great job.
But I think it deserves. They were very courageous about it, because it would have been so easy for Reha to just go and throw Tagamas under the bus. Like there are coaches and there are GMs out there who would have just like, I'm going to preserve my job and my reputation, and I'm going to throw this guy, and we're going to blame the entire year on him. And he stuck his neck out for this guy, who's not a plug and play, right? Tagamas, it cannot go on every team, sorry. Not any. He can go on some. He can't go on every team, but Reha stuck his neck out for him and said he will succeed in the team that I want to build next year, and that deserves a lot of courage, because people really, really want, not everyone, but a lot of people really want KC to fail, and he took it on himself and he took the responsibility. So fair enough, you go and do that. You deserve the credit if it works out. And that I think is the important thing. And I would say, so just one last thing, which is that I would say for Vladdy outperformed even my expectations.
Oh, nice.
When I saw Caliste coming up, I was like, okay, yeah, this guy's obviously going to be like absolutely absurd. But Vladdy improved a huge amount, and honestly, he wasn't ready to come in when Jackies came in. But let's say if Jackies came in summer instead of from the start of the year, so they both started at the same time, people would be saying Vladdy they would be talking about Vladdy in the same way that they're talking about Jackies. It's just Jackies is always one split of development ahead of him. And
yeah, I think Jackies did a really good job of branding himself, because with the in-houses and stuff, and memeing around with Whippo and the Anadit Armors memes. Like he actually also has done a good job of getting some personality out there, so he is actually a person and not just someone who's a character on a screen, whatever champion he's picking today, which is also helped, right? So he's got that kind of additional presence outside of just whatever he's clicking on in game.
Right, my good point is going to be interesting. Listen, I didn't go the obvious angle. Obviously, I could do the whole, like, upsets back bit. Like, nah, listen, that'll just be a point in the future weeks. Don't worry. And also, I'm saving that for playoffs. Like, listen, I'm not going to get tricked again. Not falling for it again, upset. So it's okay. What I'm actually going to do is my good point is, it's not upset. Elyoya is back, bro. Here's one of the areas where I know Peter has an angle on this, but one of the reasons why I actually think fans are out on Elyoya is of two things. One's in game, one's out. So outside of the game, there's that stupid drama he had with Niski during that MSI, where, by the way, the reason why you always lose that Elyoya, except with Spanish fans, is because Niski is beloved by general fans, bro. He has not only like a nice playstyle, but he comes off like the coolest guy ever. Spoiler, he isn't. He can be moody in his own way. He just has his own way of presenting it. And I have to say, on that argument, I've always actually sided with the Elyoya side. I've always thought, if I'm in the trenches of the actual war, like at MSI, bro, like, we aren't even supposed to be here. Like, we're here now. Let's fucking win. Let's go hard. Let's not accept any bullshit. I don't really like sort of the Niski thing of like, hey, let's take like a fucking breath, man, and walk around the block and like hold hands and see if we can't come to some... Nah, I'm sort of with the like, step your game up, mate. Let's fucking win these matches. I kind of like that. That shows me. I didn't see that as Elyoya having tantra. I see he cares, bro. He really fucking cares about winning, even though, by the way, if you know the backstory of that team, they never should have done anything. They lost every fucking bazillion scrims. Like, they don't even know how they made the finals and won. Not ironically, they think it's like, it almost shouldn't have happened. And they all agreed after literally like 2 weeks into split one, this team shouldn't exist. In fact, is there a way we can like kick each other out and move the team? So people don't seem to realise, cause Elyoya is like that, he has a really, really spicy fucking personality. It means that players like that, by the way, are going to do not very well when they don't have very high-level pieces around them. If you think about Elyoya when he had humanoid and really top-level player, Kazi when he was still pretty good, all these players when they were at their peak, basically, then he was a fucking monster and he was doing what he's doing now. So the reason I say Elyoya is back is because Jojo is the fucking kind of mechanical player that I know that Elyoya wants to play with, who can execute the players he wants to make. He's got all the other guys we already had from the Spanish scene and that coach. So he's got all the people. And here's the best thing. The problem Elyoya has had in his career is if I say to you someone is like a carry jungler or like a primary threat as a jungler, people think you play Lee Sin and you just gank people all day. That's a very simplistic way of thinking about it, right? Because, like, for example, that's what Closer's game used to be. And he was a carry jungler in that sense, but he wouldn't be the game you played the whole game around. He's actually assisting other people with the ganks. The genius of Elyoya to me is he actually clearly does coordinate the game around his game, but it's more of actually like a nuanced game. Like, you think about how good he is on a Sejuani or something like that. Like, this is a guy who like sets up the game, and the key thing as well is he's so underrated in the team fights, bro. There are junglers who set the game up and other people carry the team fight and they're just fucking a distraction. This guy's like, I know how I'm going to win this team fight if you are all positioned correctly, you do what I say. So I actually expect, I think this team's going to be a banger. I've told people I think it's them and Fnatic will be in the finals. I'm waiting to see if they're going to be one of the best teams. So I think Elyoya is back, and I mean the best Elyoya. I mean the guy who can actually be like best jungle in the league. He's back. Thoughts, Initialise?
I have been really happy to see Elyoya advance his playstyle a bit. Because when he first came in and was first considered the best jungler in the league, he played one style, and that was be in the enemy jungle the entire time, fight the enemy jungler there. I'm not going to gank. I'm going to farm for myself. I'm going to fight the enemy jungler, take him out of the game, and the rest of my team can do the jungling, the other bits of the jungling bit, because my job is to mess around with the enemy jungle. And actually, I think he has grown to be a lot more than that, and he is starting to be more of that team fight person. He's actually getting players to follow him in his lead, and he is taking that captaincy role on with a little bit more nuance than I think he did in the past. I also think that from what I was hearing from some of the Mad Koi guys, he's a major reason why Jojo even joined the LEC.
Right.
Like, he had a big conversation with him when Jojo was sort of looking at his options. He said, and Jojo was like, look, well, can I speak with the team captain? I want to kind of get on board with the players. And they had a really deep conversation, and Elyoya was like, this is how I want to play the game. And he won Jojo onto his playstyle. He won this guy into being, this is how I want to play the game. This is how we're going to be genuinely great. Join this vision. I will take us there. And Jojo's like, yeah, I'm in. I believe you. Let's do this. And I think that is serious growth and serious props to Elyoya for having that additional level of charisma and leadership to go alongside the hands that we've always known he's had. And now he's got more ways he plays the game and more ways he can lead, and does it with that little bit more experience behind him. And I think it's really, really turning up for Mad Koi, and I think they could be very, very fun.
I mean, from my side, just going back to the Niski thing, I think that a lot of that drama was amplified by certain content creators in the
That didn't
scene,
help, yeah.
Regional
wanting
streamers,
to-
Yeah.
wanting to like kind of amplify what was, a difference in style. It's not Elyoya going on Twitter shitting on Niski and saying, this guy's not professional for laughing at a moment like this, right? Now, in a perfect world, if Elyoya is like the perfect angel, god tier leader, he's going to go on Twitter and just shut it down immediately. But they just had a really, really disappointing loss. And, sometimes you just don't want to be on social media. You just want to like sit aside. And he did come and say something 3 days later, but a lot of the damage had been done by them. So I would say I don't think he was the one that was like amplifying the drama, but he could have done more. But again, that's a lot of expectation to put on an individual person.
I'm just saying it's fine to be upset, like you can genuinely come out and then be pissed. That's a normal thing to be done. And again, not that Niski's reaction is an unnormal thing to do either, but it is very different. And they're two very different.
He also was doing it in the fucking in the actual like dressing room. He didn't do a stream and do it. He didn't choose to put that on the internet.
That's behind the scenes. Exactly. That's not the same.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I would say that from my understanding, he's quite emotional, but he also has very, very strong opinions, and he's not afraid to speak his mind. And I would say that not every mid laner can survive. Inspired is another one like this. Where they will go really, really hard if they don't think you're performing. But to be honest, that's the stuff. Like I think that sure, JoJo has hands. The synergy between them hasn't been the best. Like the reason why they were really far behind against Giants is because JoJo messed up his third wave push. He had to TP back to lane. And as a result, Jackie's got a TP advantage of him, and Elyoya fought when Jackie's just TP'd and Jojo had to base later, right? So they didn't communicate that. Elyoya took a fight when Jojo wasn't in mid lane. And so their synergy isn't there. But what I would say is the synergy outside the game is clearly something that is going to work. Because Jojo's one of those guys, like he loves the banter on Twitter, but he also loves he loves to be told things straight in the most direct way possible. And sometimes if you don't tell him you entered here, or you try to find a nice way, you didn't play this very well, but like, I understand like that, nothing will trigger Jojo more than that. So having this kind of a guy is good. I think those two guys will be really, really good. I will say that firstly, Koi have really, really insane team fighting. I agree completely with you, Thorin, here, and I think Elyoya is a big part of that. But I will say Alvaro, to me, has been the best player in the LEC this split. Okay. It's partly because Jojo and Elyoya are playing well with him, but also he's getting a lot of individual advantages and making Jojo's life easier, making Elyoya's life easier. I can't remember the third game. So first game, obviously Jojo had a good game. Second game, he played Ari and got like completely destroyed by K-Corp by like Targamas and.
Do you know the story behind that one as well? Because his mouse had broken and the DPI settings were all bugged, so he was playing on the wrong DPI, but just enough to really mess with your head. And he just didn't figure out, and he didn't pause the game because he didn't quite work it out. And then basically afterwards, his manager was like, "What are you doing? Just pause the game, man." Yeah. So there was this whole thing where he was like, "Why am I missing all my charms? What's going on?" And it was like they were trying to sort it out behind the scenes. Anyway, there was a whole thing with the mouse DPI, apparently. I mean, not that's entirely excusing a bad game, but you can understand why that little bit off just really gets in your head at a top level.
But the funny thing is, I can't even remember who they played the third game. Let me quickly check who it was. It was against
Vitality.
Vitality.
Week 1.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was against Vitality week 1, and Hylissang sat in his side. Like Vitality knew he just had a bad game, and they like were there, like targeting him. And Alvaro, every single time Vitality went for Jojo on side lane, except once when they were hard trading and Mad Koi got a lot on the other side. Alvaro was there every single time. He was literally babysitting the guy. And respect to Alvaro. I agree with you. Elyoya, like those two guys definitely should work really, really well. Melzet, I don't know Melzet that well, but I know he's not afraid to tell it like it is. And like I said, Jojo is going to fit really, really well into this kind of environment. And it looks really, really good for Koi so far. I will say I don't think it's just between Koi and Fnatic. I think KC has shown me enough that maybe by spring they'll be fine. But we'll see for sure. It's definitely a good sign.
Well, Elyoya is back, and so is Into the M. You can see I'm wearing one of them now. It's got the nice, like, Japanese sort of pastoral design on this one. Obviously, if you've seen other shows, I have the one where it's like a Neo Tokyo with like a pagoda, but all like neon signs and kind of a Blade Runner effect. Into the AM does awesome t-shirts and all sorts of wear. And basically, one of the things that I like about their t-shirts is I'm the sort of person who only ever had like the £15 band t-shirt or the one with just, actually, if you know in the UK, you go to like a print shop and it's got like Spider-Man or something of a comic and they actually print it on for you. But if anyone knows those, one, the prints are terrible. They all crackle and all fray and look at edges, which is okay for band things. It's supposed to show you had it ages ago, but it's terrible for wearing. Like everyone knows a black t-shirt, for example, that you buy like that. You wash it 5 times, it gets a little bit grey, it looks like it's all dotty, it goes from being like, oh, it feels great the first time, it's like, that's a cardboard, like, the hell is this? This is horrible. This shirt doesn't have any of that. The build quality is mega on it, like, it's still just a stretchy, I've worn this about like 15 times, by the way, and washed it many, many, many times between shows. Understandably, I don't keep one and wear it 15 times or whatever. Also, there's loads of different options on the site, like a million print shirts. They've got all the ones that are just the plain ones if you just want a nice t-shirt of a particular colour. They do bundles for all of them, and this is where, if you are an LFN fan, it helps because not only do they do bundles where you can get like 3 print shirts or 3 plain ones and you save money, but crucially, the code they give us, LFN on screen, always gives you 10% and it stacks with everything else. So if you get a bundle and you save an amount, you can then put the code in and save 10% off that amount of the bundle. It's not one of those sites where, you know, a coupon like gets blocked by another one or a sale. Then right now, and this is why they're coming back to us now on LFN, they have their Into the Aim anniversary sale. It already began on the 22nd of January, so it's running now. It'll run through to the 9th of February, so you've still got a bit of time, week and a bit more. You can get up to 50% off on things on the store. And if you just heard what I said, then you apply our code LFN at intotheM.com/LFN. And if you picked a 50% item, you would now get 60% off. So you also just get a mega saving. And I think it's just a cool angle because it means it's not just like they're advertising with us when it's like not sale season and you get 10% off. It actually all stacks. It's kind of a cool thing. So as I said, get an additional 10% off plus whatever savings there are, up to 50% off on other items with the code LFN at intotheM.com/LFN. Thank you to LFN and anyone who purchases those shirts. You might have seen we did a collab shirt and soon there will be LFN merch coming. If you choose to actually go outside and be seen in an LFN shirt, I would suggest you do it, but then again, caveat emptor. Right, let's get into the bad points. My favourite section. So Initialise, where are you going on this one, mate?
I want to talk about SK's coordination being absolutely
How much time
awful.
have we got?
Okay. I know. And I think there's a few parts to this that are really, really tragic for me. I think Loopy has not been it. They've replaced Luon, obviously, and he's just been all over the place. Tried the Elise, kind of got a few things early, then fell off in the mid-game, keeps getting caught out. We are seeing a lot of snapping gauges with the blinders on, not doing due diligence about where people are on the map and not having enough damage there. I was trying to remember, it was second week, I think it was game 3, where they just absolutely ran it. It looked awful, where they sort of died for first blood, did Loopy, and then it kind of got worse from there. I'm also looking at the solo lanes of Genex and Rika going up against Vitality and the likes of Naknako and Chayek, who 6 months ago, they were handily destroying on a regular basis, mechanically outplaying, side laning significantly better at levels like Amir Masters, which is obviously not tier 1, but they were doing this at a regular level at sort of big tournaments such as it is for tier 2, doing it in the LFL, and then they come up to LEC. It's the same players that we know they can beat. They were doing it regularly for the entirety of a year, and they look lost. They do not look confident. They do not look like they know how to play a side lane. And then the coordination between the rest of the team on top of that is so poor. It's looking pretty dire there. And that's really sad to say, because I thought people like Genex and Rika had earned themselves another shot. They were kind of worthy of giving it a go, having shown some pretty good stuff in LFL. I looked at people like the AD carry, right, for SK, who was really good last year in Rahel, and was thinking, okay, maybe another shot here is worthy. And it's all kind of falling apart. They look worse than the sum of their parts, and that's a real disaster for them.
Go on, Peter.
Yeah, I agree. So the first thing is on Loopy. Loopy played in LLA, I think, last year.
Yes, I think it was. Yeah, I didn't watch so many of his games there, though.
Yeah, I watched a little bit for coming into the season. He was fine. He was but he wasn't as good as B-Boy was in LLA, and B-Boy when he came to LEC really, really didn't look that good. The game, he was a bit of a passenger in many of these games, and he didn't show anything crazy. And I think if you want if you're going to be imported from a minor region, and I know I'm going to get flamed a lot for this because
I know,
like
I'm
to
another
import people
Emmy
from minor
stan, right?
regions.
Looking here, I was the LGL guy alongside Never. I'm right there with you.
If you're
Like,
going-
I will hold my boy.
if you're going to import somebody from a minor region, they better be like, the best person in their position at the region. But what I would say, obviously we know that SK are working on budget constraints. Obviously, Rika was like this mega, mega, mega. I mean, he was one of the most chased rookies amongst teams this offseason. But what I would say that I don't understand is Rika has historically done really, really well when he plays with like a hard carry jungler. Did really, really well with Skew1 last year.
Yeah.
Did well with Shio. He did well with what was the name of that guy? Akabane. On
Forgot
big
about him.
a long time ago. But who does he do badly with? He does badly with like the supportive style junglers, right? He did really poorly with Donut. He did really poorly with Maxi. He did, and now they put him with Isma. And Isma, SK for whatever reason think this guy is like a mega mega carry jungler. They play him with Niski. They paired him with Rika, who is base. I don't want to say budget Niski. He's similar in strengths, to what they provide for a team as Niski. Lots of shot calling, roam on the right timers. They play the early game not as a 1v1, they play it as a 2v2. And they put this guy with Isma. Yeah, to me, it is, he's not being set up to succeed because they're not analyzing his strengths at the moment. And I think that's the issue that SK have. I think that the BDS lineup, Parus and Skew1 looked better because they were playing with Rika, and Rika looked better because he was playing with Parus and Skew. And I think you can't like disconnect the two things, right? It's like we were talking like for KC, when they were playing with when Saken was playing with Caliste and Synchrof, he looked much better than when he was playing with Upset and Bo, right? Comms are so important, and fans I think normally can see the mechanics on the Rift, but you don't see the comm. And I think this is a little bit of what SK is suffering with. I will say though, SK actually their goal difference at 15 is not that bad.
Not
I think
awful,
they're like
no.
they're like fifth or sixth. It's like the mid game. The mid game is kind of where it's falling apart. And it's complicated, right? But obviously, like they have time to fix it. But having seen Niski and Isma play together for an entire year, Rika and Isma isn't the answer. But we'll see. We'll see how things develop. Of course.
I mean, if I could step on that a little bit as well, because one of the things I think we'll be getting to some of these players' heads, and I think particular teams are potentially not going to make playoffs in a particularly easy manner. The ERL system underneath LEC has shifted this year. We are now at a 3-split system in ERLs. And what was kind of a sort of window of safety in winter, where, okay, if you mess up in the first few weeks, you'll still get another shot in spring, because ERL contracts are still tied up for a split. They're not there. You're not going to find easy, good players to pull out a contract mid-split from the ERLs, because teams want to hold on to them. They want to go to NBA Masters. They want to get as much value as they can, and they've got buyout clauses and stuff. That's not necessarily as strictly the case anymore, because the splits are lined up with LEC. So if you mess up in winter, well, there's a load of players in ERLs who actually have got contracts that are much more available at this point between splits. And for some of these players who you're looking at your Gen X's, your Rikas, who were given a shot and then have had to go down and they've come back up again, probably don't have many more chances to prove they are LEC worthy. That gets in your head quite fast, especially when you're a team that is struggling and not playing super well and not like, at least on screen, even if comms are a significant part of the issue. It's like, well, guys, why the hell are you side laning so poorly? Like, I know you're better than that, but you're not. What's going on? One of the things you'll see is people just go, well, let's change people out, let's change pieces out, and who are going to be the ones that are targeted first? You go, well, some of these players that haven't been performing where we need them in the carry roles, and with a lot of these ERL players who are cheap and available and would love a shot at LEC, they're there and good to go.
And there's a lot of people there's a lot of mid laners that are really, really hyped that people think should have got chances. The reason I know this is because lots of people think they should have been on Heretics. People like Serin, people like Giyu, these guys. These guys. Rika was better than those two guys last year, but is our SK is the GM or the coach of SK going to stick his neck out for Rika and Genax in the same way that Reha did for Tugmas, right? We'll have to see at the end of the split, right? But yeah, for sure. I don't think their meta read is perfect, by the way, as well. I'll go and add to that. Like, the drafts that they are playing are not the type of drafts that are easy to close games with. And sometimes when you are playing badly or you're not like a top team, just draft your team fighting comp and hope to out team fight your opponent. So I think that plays into it a bit too. But yeah, definitely. I don't think Genax has been that bad, to be fair, but I think Rika has definitely for sure.
My problem with this team is when you look at the squad, I think it was just like the ultimate fucking pie in the sky. Like, I could see an angle for most of the players. Like, the Rika and Genax one is obviously, it's the idea of like, no, this is going to be the example of where they went away and they developed more in the RLs and they've gotten confidence and they believe they're ready now. And obviously they played all those great scrims against the LEC teams and they were winning and everyone thought they were awesome. So now this is actually supposed to be a really shrewd pickup from SK Gaming, because it's not like other teams, loads of them are coming for these players. SK is always working on a budget, so what they're trying to do is pick up the people that others have sort of left out and maybe like they're undervalued a little bit. The problem I have is this. The Rika one, look, I'll give him a little bit more time because I have actually heard from many of the coaches that worked with him. He just never ever played in the LEC the first time like he used to be when he was in like Prime League or whatever, and when he was like in the ERL system. He just he didn't even have the confidence to be himself, basically, and he didn't give himself. He tried to just play too conservative. And spoiler, you were on fucking Mad Lions, told me. Like, that was a team that was going to Worlds. Like, you can do that on the bottom team. You can get away with that. You were never going to get away with that because they had to pivot to go to Worlds. It makes sense, I'm afraid. And then on the Genax one, here's my problem. The Genax one I do not understand, because I thought he was all right as a mid laner if he's a bottom half mid laner. As a top laner, it's not a bad role swap, because at the time top lane was very weak in Europe. That storyline for the last 3 years isn't true anymore. Top lane's gotten way better in Europe now. You go look at the top lane. Pro, it's one of the best roles in LEC. So you look at it, I'm sorry, immediately, Genax, you're coming into the league for me as 10th or 9th top laner, and it's going to be a hard slog after that, because I've never been a huge Genax fan personally. And I'll say this, I think just like Rika, Genax is one of those players that Peter would do that impassioned appeal on Twitter that someone else would pick them up. But as I've always told Peter, it's different when you tell other coaches to pick those players up and you don't sign them to your team. That's, there's a thing called skin in the game, Peter. Here's the thing. I'll give you mad credit for the fucking Ruby and Ebby one. You put your reputation on the line with that one. The ones where you just go, this guy's really great, someone else should pick him up. Yeah, I bet they fucking should, mate. I tell you what else, if I could start spending other people's money and gambling with it, I'll do it all day long, mate. If I had to spend my own, I'm a little bit more stingy, you know what I mean? I like to know what I'm getting, the value for my money. So when I look at the team, they only kept for my money one player I actually can have belief would be good. And I do think he's been good. It's the ADC Rahel.
Yeah, Rahel.
That was a real find last year. That is a legit player who actually has fucking hands. He looks like, by the way, this is where being Korean's good and bad. It looks like I imagine he now knows he's fucking trapped in a fucking broom closet and he's no chance of getting out, but he still tries. He still fucking tries to win these games and do what he can. So I think he's good, but at the moment, the rest of the squad just isn't it. And Isma, I'm sorry, this is another example of the fucking Niski success story, because there was times he looked really good and he'd have those big games. It's like, bro, I have to see you without Niski before I can give you any of that props. And I haven't seen it now. And if he's supposed to be some shot calling element, I'm not saying it, mate. I'm not. So I also think in their team, do they even have a shot caller aside from Rahel, who's the start? By the way, the worst player is the support player. That one's a mad downgrade. So you haven't even really enabled your ADC. By the way, if you're going to go into the RLs and dip, just get a support. That's the obvious angle to go with for this team to try and fix it. You're going to say something, Peter?
Yeah, no, sorry, do you want to go first?
No, you go first. I've got something, but you finished.
Okay, so I would say the thing about Isma as well is to remember, even when he was in ERLs, he was a Movistar Riders with the Frescawi Super Alvaro Melzet Movistar Riders, and his job was basically go bot on at 3 minutes and get a kill for Super, and then Super will shock all the rest of them. Like, I mean, that's literally what he was doing, and it was very, very effective. And they got to the finals, and they were one game away. I think they lost the finals 3-2, and they were one. But it was very clear that the coach or the team had a really clear vision of what was required for him, and he didn't innovate. He wasn't one of those junglers like 113 or things like this who innovated their own things. He had a job and he did his job. And some at LEC level, you can't just do that, right? People will just exploit you if you go and do that. The last person who managed to do that was like Malrang, but Malrang's job was like to cause chaos. So is that really like being a structured position that's easy to exploit?
That links on super well, because I was about to say, look who else is looking really good right now. Elyoya, look who he's playing with in sport. It's Alvaro. Oh, look what else is looking really good. Wow, look at this. And again, like, jungling is never a solo game, particularly when you are trying to be setting up for teammates or trying to get like Genox on a Jace or whatever. That's not going to work if your jungle support aren't doing good work together. And Isma and Loopy are not even the same book, never mind the same page. They are way off on different parts of the map right now. It's not looking pretty between those two.
Right, if we go now, Peter, what is your bad point? This is also, by the way, genius in this format, because I'm forcing Peter to have a bad point every week.
Okay, so I was thinking about this, and my bad point is rogue team construction. And so I went with two teams because it's the first one of the year. We've seen 2 weeks of teams. SK have had a pretty hard schedule, I'll say. SK's 2 remaining games have to play Rogue and BDS and Fnatic, but Rogue still have to play G2, Koi, and they have the game against SK. And their only win this season is against Herod. Okay, so if you look at how they built their team, so they have Execute, but I would always think about Execute as Jonghoon.
Yep.
They have like this core of incredibly, incredibly aggressive play. They have Jonghoon, who's always going to go in. They have Malrang, who will sacrifice his farm to the detriment. Like when Malrang was playing in Brazil last year, there were times when Malrang looked like the worst jungler in the league last year. He was bad in Brazil. Like there were times he was okay, but the majority of the split, he was on a roster on a Kaboom roster that was one of the highest budgets in the league, and he looked like he was kind of running it down a bit in Brazil. But a lot of that was him being really, really aggressive. And you've got Adam, who's obviously archetypal, like aggressive top lane. Around those guys, and these guys want to fight. They don't want to play side lanes. They just want to like fight and go in and like take every single fight. And you put Larson, who's like farm up, use your brain kind of mid laner, don't hand check unless you have to. And you have Patrick, and whose style has become much more passive over time, and you put them with this front line, right? Now, you can go and say to me, sure, Rogue had budget constraints, sure, Rogue had limits. They're the 5th highest budget in the entire league. Like, these guys are not like some poor team that, oh no, woe is me, I can't, we don't have the budget. They have they have a huge amount of budget, and sure, a lot of that's going to Larson, but you're not telling me that you're so limited that you have to kind of take this risk. And I will give a bit of credit to Larson. He's been jumping in a little bit, but Patrick has definitely looked completely out of sync with the rest of the team. He's missing flashes, he's misplaying team fights, like the basic things that you would expect from your AD carry. He's not outputting damage, he's like not flashing, he's not like, he looks completely out of it. And I will say Larson looks like he's playing out of his comfort zone a bit, but he is going in, and definitely he had an Azir game in week 1 where he was like jumping in and initiating the fight. So the problem I have with Rogue is they have these 2 contradictory styles, but how are they going to make it? How are they going to make it function? And even in the TH game, they should have lost that TH game. Like it was a bit of Carlson and Kamalu not really knowing how to close the game from like their 3K goal lead, and then Rogue outscaled. So I mean, it's I know it's a bit mean to pick on Rogue, because who was expecting Rogue to do anything this year? But their budget is high, right? So we should hold people accountable. Like if you're spending a lot of money, like if you're Heretics and you're spending the least amount of money in the league, fine. It's a development project and things like that. Your KC, you're spending very, very little, but you're getting these results. Great, you deserve to be praised. Your Fnatic, you're spending like the most, and you're doing well. Great, right? But if you're spending a decent amount of money and your performance is poor, that means you deserve to be pulled out, right?
Yeah.
I mean, look, okay. This is my hot take. I think Rogue are an aggressive or just solid AD carry away from actually winning 2 or 3 more games. That's my serious issue, because I don't think Rogue are that far away. That's the thing that's really frustrating me. There's a number of these games they could well have won. And Patrick was very nearly my ugly point for today. That's how much I've been very, very unimpressed. Because I was looking up, like, I don't like to be too stats heavy, because I don't think that does a really good job of saying the style of play people are putting in, how games have gone, how interactive they are, all those things. But I still think that AD carries tend to be a little bit more numbers reliant than most. You are still asked to be efficient, to do damage, to be involved in the game. That's kind of your role as a champion or as a player on the whole. Certain players notwithstanding, but then you have those conversations about them, right? Patrick is the highest deaths on average a game for an AD carry. He is by far the lowest damage per minute for AD carries. He's nearly like, I think he might even be the lowest gold per minute for AD carries as well. And he's playing Caliste and Varus. Like, you should not be hitting 540 DPM as an AD carry there when your next lowest is Rahel. And we've already talked about how SK are not looking good. And he's 60 DPM higher. Never mind your Noahs, your Calistes, your upsets who are doing like 900 plus. Like, you are half the damage of the best AD carries in the league on that budget. Like, that is not acceptable. And I know, like, Adam had an interview in typical Adam, quite blunt fashion with Sheep Esports. We're saying, look, this is not acceptable at an LEC level. We're getting paid this much. How are we making this mistakes? We are playing Vi, Galio, and Bessa, and we can't combo once in a game? Mm-hmm. What is going on? That is one of the easiest combos. So I think there is communication issues, and I think there are player hands issues too. Patrick, at least for now, I know it's only 2 weeks in, and he's had ups and downs in his careers before, but this is a real low point for him.
By the way, go on.
Sorry, last point. It's easy. It's very, very obvious to fans when, like, a supporter or jungler are inting. You know, we can see when Hylissang, everyone can see when Hylissang is inting, right? But you very rarely see when the AD carry is inting. Like, you have to come and dig a little bit. You know, if you're playing really, really safe, you can kind of hide it. And I think that's a little bit of what's happening. It just, he had one game where he like missed 4 flashes. so people, it shone a light on it. But yeah, you know, he's not pushing his limits like he should on these kind of champions.
I'll start on the last point about comms, because this is another example of where I've tried to level up my sort of analytical eye when I look at rosters, because I've made the mistake many, many times of looking at a roster that all the players look good on paper, and then you only realise 3 weeks in, like, oh shit, they haven't got a shot caller. In fact, no one even wants to shot. Fuck, what? Like, and then it's doomed. Like, suddenly the team that has hands can't do anything. Look at this roster. Who the fuck is shot calling here? One, I can tell you, that's not Larsen's game. Larsen is like Chovy. Like, I'm fucking CSing at the moment. Can you shut the fuck up? Like, that's his game. Adam, you wouldn't even want him to talk, mate. I'd have him gagged and just go, look, you just fucking go forwards and do all that bullshit from solo queue, mate. Malrang is Korean and then executes Korean. And Patrick is just like a fucking chill ADC guy who's been around a million years. Where I don't know where you expect the shot calling, the captaincy's coming from. That's an area I think you failed the lineup, because other than that, I never hated this. As we were talking about at the beginning of this point, I think on paper, there's a sort of weird yin-yang thing of like, you put 3 maniacs with 3 traditionally like very good conservative players who output the damage in the team fight and get through lane. That should work in a way. Like, there's almost a logic of how the jigsaw pieces would fit together. It's just at the moment, they don't. And even worse, the jigsaw pieces just stay in their like separate areas. So, like, I know people love, because he used to be like one of the best in the league, to bang on Larsen. I actually genuinely, look, I won't brag about many areas of league, but I don't think you know how laning works in League of Legends if you think this guy is bad. He actually does a very good job. Reminds me of Chovy, on even when his team is bad and the game is going badly, of just eking out CS. And I hope people understand, please understand, that in League of Legends mid lane, it ain't about solo kills. It's not season fucking 4, you idiot. In the modern day, if both solo and mid laners basically agreed to never go for a solo kill, and I just out-farm you, I'm going to be in a mega position in the team fight. The gold I'm going to have means I'm going to get the items, and when you look at the champions Larsen plays, now if everyone actually plays correctly in team fight, I can output damage. I can do my thing. And by the way, you might think he's boring. That makes him predictable for his teammates. In theory, his teammates should know where he's going to position, when he's going to go in, you know when he's going to be on the edge, when he's going to back out. The problem, as you say it in the team fights, the number one problem is Patrick. Bro, it's not even that he's playing too passively. He's just walking into people. He's just doing like mad suicide shit, which is like, that's not even his game. That's not, I don't even see this as like Patrick. But he's picking all the champions he's famous for. Obviously, he himself must believe he should be in LEC, but this is easily, I don't want to hear that thing of like, see, I always thought he was overrated on XL. I did, but he was still like the 5th best ADC or something, bro. He wasn't actually like this.
Right? He
actually has taken a tangible step down from any past year I've ever seen him play. And so that's also what's not making it work. Because when you look at this roster, roster, I'll tell you what I'm envisioning if I give a very, very simplistic archetypal view, right? I would want this to be like the old Misfits with Vethio. I'd want it to be like, get Vethio to a team fight. Neon's just going to do proper ADC fighting, front to back. Everyone else's job, that's right, you're diving on the back line or fucking peeling. If you do that, these two guys have hands, they'll clean up the team fight. They can't fucking do it. They can't do anything in a team fight. That's why a game lasts forever. That's why a game never, ever ends. Essentially, these guys can't just close a game out. So I think, unfortunately, it's whack already. It just doesn't work. And I'll put this out there. I know it's popular to say it, but I think it's true. I never understood last year why the fuck Jack Spectre was still playing in the RLs. This is one of the most obvious eye test players I've seen in ages. He was polished. He'd had years to come up. Even if you see him on all the streams, it seems like he actually knows what he's talking about. He has a fucking good mind for the game. Mate, bro, if you could pop this guy in today, I tell you what, I'd be fucking calling him up. You know what? The joke is, if I'm Rogue, me and Fly and fucking Freddy122 are on the chopper out to the log cabin. Right, come on, Jack Spectre, you got one last mission, mate. Come back in. If I could pop him in today, we could win some of these games. Like, the rest of them we can work with, because actually I think you can make Malrang and fucking Adam work. He'll just, if essentially Adam just learns how to politely ask, Malrang will come top lane anytime you want, mate. Like, I probably ruined the whole split by telling you that, but that's a secret. And then secondly, it's actually a low-key banger move to put the Korean and fucking jungle and support together. That's not even a terrible idea. That's someone who can talk to Malrang. But thus far, what has manifested in the server is ass. I agree with you. They could have even lost the game they won. And this team, for real, they're just glad SK Gaming exists. That's all I have to say on the end of that.
Yeah, and I mean, we're not saying these guys have to beat Fnatic and Koi, right? But they should never be below Vitality and Hapgood.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like,
absolutely.
not in the first split. Maybe in summer, but not in the first split.
And someone needs to finish the layups. Like, Malrang and Jonghoon have actually found some decent engage in the early games. They've skirmished fine, but then you've got to follow up on the start. Like, if you're going to play like this and someone press the R button afterwards, what's happening?
Yeah.
Right, my bad point, is I've framed it in the most perfect Thorin way. So I'll start out and then I'll hit the line. So what I'm going to say is this. I hate it when people gamble endlessly on rookies. And especially, we've even seen this in Counter-Strike now, believe it or not. In Counter-Strike, we've opened our scene up, so everyone's in this national roster like League now, and we have this whole system where FPL, where essentially they all play like the equivalent of like an in-house POG with each other. So everyone actually knows who the hot shit is, who's got the aim, who's got the fucking like balls to play aggressive, who's having the stats in the tier 2 and tier 3. Actually, Counter-Strike somewhat caught up to where League of Legends European is in terms of like development, right? So what you get is people will gamble on these like shit hot rookies, right? But the mistake we've learned in Counter-Strike, another comms heavy game, it's more of a comms heavy game if people don't know, is actually you don't want too many rookies. What you want is you want one or two. I would say the way Peter did it in EG was masterful. You want one or two so you can integrate them into the roster. If they're doing badly, you can somewhat band-aid them. If there's someone who has skills but they're a bit one-dimensional and they're not polished, you play to the strength. You play to the strength. You play to the strength. Other veterans sacrifice. Veterans bring them up. Veterans tell them, it's only game one, mate. Don't worry, kid. We're going to get back in games. The problem in these other teams, and I'm mainly looking at Heretics and Vitality here, is... Bro, you've taken that whole, we're going to find the next good rookie player, and you've just gone way too far with it. And the reason why I think it's gross is because I'm just going to point out something Peter just referenced. If you're Heretics, you had the lowest spending in the league. You maybe had to do some crazy gambles, or you'd be picking up some of the you'd be picking up Genax, you know what I mean? But Vitality, you are right in the middle of the pack, bro. You certainly could have signed other players. I mean, as implied, like maybe there's other players out there, talents that should be in the league at this point in time. So I don't know what is going on with those guys. Like, again, these are the guys who are like, bro, I want leader in that team instead of some of these people. I want to see if these people make it. So here's the line I'm going to hit at the end. Yes, it looks genius when you pick up rookies and they become really good, or they're like as good as the person you placed it with. But here's the problem. You aren't Peter Dun. You understand that? All the GMs out there, you aren't Peter Dun. Maybe you can even find the rookie, but can you integrate him? Because I see a lot of people, even when they find a good rookie with prospects, they just throw him out in the game as if it's like, well, there you go, kid. You're playing number 9 for fucking Real Madrid. Go on, score a couple of goals. And it's like, oh, he's shit in the bed. Oh, well, guess that didn't work. Because here's why I know these people don't know these players now and integrate them. These will be the teams that in 2 splits, on the last split, will just gamble and bring some other fucking guy in and they'll abandon that. Because I've always hated that. Oh, I believe in this rookie so much. As soon as your job's on the line, fired, out the team. Peter at least fucking rode till the sunset with some of these guys. He took his lumps when they didn't work out. And actually, as he pointed out in our interview, he never did one split jobs unless forced to. He would always essentially say, like, look, I'm going to gamble another split on you because I'm going to double down that there's a reason to do this. It can still work. So, and that's why I'm going to say to these other GMs and coaches, you are Peter Dun, mate. Pick one rookie. Pick some veterans that can play, put them around them, work on... By the way, gamble on that rookie, but then gamble on it. Build the whole team around him, give him his chance. Then if it's... Because I hate these teams with like 3 rookies. It's like, bro, you would have to be the most genius guy with the eye, the integration. Fucking hell, you'd have to be the god coach. And I don't think you guys are. It's not even hating on you, but they haven't got it, Peter.
Do you want to go first in this list?
You have some thoughts? Go on.
I think they have set a lot of these rookies up to fail. I think is the long and short of it. And I know some of this is budget stuff, and that's really frustrating me because actually a lot of these players I have seen, and I think they've got talent. A lot of them probably do have what it takes to move up to LEC. This is how you take the step. Because it's like, okay, here's this little mountain you're going to have to climb, and rather than giving you the guide ropes and the pitons to climb this mountain, it's like, you're going to freeball this, and if you fall, it is lights out. There is no safety net, there is no recovery, and you don't have everything to make this work. And I somewhat get it for Vitality in the sense that Naknako and Chayek were on Vitality B year before. They played pretty well down there. They knew each other. They were part of the Vitality organization. So they tried to pull a Carmine call, right, and say, look, they were here succeeding in the LFL, the ERL region, where everyone is so strong and screaming the LEC teams and do so well at the Emir Masters and all of that massive line. And actually with Fearless coming up as well, and these players are psychopaths who have crazy champion pools, now's the time to do it. And I sort of see the reasoning. But then to do that, and then you've got Kazi and Hylissang, who in fairness are a pretty solid pair of veterans. And obviously there's some psychopathy in there as well, and maybe they aren't the stable veterans, if you know what I mean. You're not going in there, and it's not like, I know, Chachi's come back to play again, show the rookies how it done, and be a rock. That's not what they are. They are there to join the kids in the violence in whatever manner it may be. But you then got Linsis as well, who has got, a year of play under his name, and has already got quite a target on his back for, like some of the choices he made in terms of where he went on a team, and that's got some fan sentiment against him. And he's a guy I really rate. I really like what I saw from him, like at ERLs, and I think he's got talent. But again, that is now 3 effective rookies and 2 players who haven't been the most consistent over the last year or 2. I think that's very fair of Hylissang, and Kazi is with Hylissang, and he, for all Kazi's flaws, one of his characteristics as a player is he will join you in whatever mad adventure you're going on as support. He'll be there with you for better or worse. And that doesn't sound to me like a team that is there to teach rookies the flaws in their games as yet. And if it goes wrong, it's going to go real wrong with that team.
So I'm going to say, because we're talking primarily about Vitality and Heretics.
Yeah.
I'm going to say judge this at the end of spring. And I think this is a point to come back at the end of spring, because if these teams do well, it's very, very easy to ride and die with your rookies when your team is doing well. It's what happens when your team is doing badly. I will say for Vitality, they did pretty badly in summer, which is why, obviously Vitality's coach is Mac, and Mac is somebody who does actually believe in rookies. But he basically spent his time where he wasn't at the championship, the season finals, working with the ERL team. Now, from the outside, I can see where Nak comes from. I can see what he sees in Naknako. Sayak was a risk. Sayak is very, very inconsistent. He's been good at LEC so far, okay? But he was inconsistent at the ERLs, but Matt clearly saw something working with him for 2 months that he liked that led to him being promoted. Because the obvious person for Vitality to sign is just Niski, right? They just put Niski in.
And they played with Kazi and Hylissang before.
Makes life so much easier, yeah.
Everything.
But the fact that Matt is choosing Sayak over Niski tells me that he sees something, right? Now, obviously, I like and I respect Mac a lot, so I'm going to hold reserve judgment until the end of spring for this. If Sayak is gone at the end of spring and Niski's in the team, fine. I will judge Vitality for it. But until that happens, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. What I will say is with Linkus, this guy. So if you asked me 2 years ago, who are the next 3 stars of the LEC, I would tell you Alvaro, Caliste, and Linkus. Those are the 3, right? And I wouldn't have Laddie on my list. I wouldn't have Jackie's on my list. I would say these 3 are guaranteed to be there, right? And obviously, Alvaro has been good for a year. Caliste has been good for 2 weeks, but he's already shown signs, right? But Linkus hasn't yet. And I think it would be a shame if he wasn't able to show his potential. But yeah, that's what I would say. So I think Vitality, they have a potential. I see what they're trying to do. I will say that Hylissang has the like. So my problem with Vitality is Hylissang. So Pad is a coach. He's a good coach. 100% Pad is a good coach. But what do people know Pad for? The only thing fans know Pad for is Hylissang making space. That's the only thing. He's the one who gave the interview where he said, people don't understand Hylissang. He's just making space. So this guy put his reputation on the line for you, and he's basically a meme, despite being a good coach.
Okay.
And this is how you're going to repay him. You're going to go and repay him by having that week 1, and then in week 2 you go and give an interview saying, "Oh, the team need to learn to play with me more." Right? When it's you're clearly the one who is like pushing your limits too much, and your coach and your teammates have gone out there to defend you to the death. Like, to me, that rubs me the wrong way, right? And I think that's my kind of issue with Vitality. With Heretics,
By the way, let me just jump in on a point there while you think of the Heretics one, because I have a quick point about Vitality. It goes like this. First of all, the reason why that Hylissang thing, look, I gave them as much rope as I could, all these coaches and players and Kazi and fucking Peter and Mark and all that. Because look, I do think there are actually splits where sometimes Hylissang would get the blame in like Fnatic, or there was even ones he was all right in Vitality that weren't the end of the world. There was some that were very, very bad and everyone did take those, and then it would become like a meme in the next split that you say is shit every time they lose the game as well. So I do think there is a genius to Hylissang's play, but it is the genius of like some Van Gogh shit of like, it's got madness infused with it as well. It's not genius like he just sees the great players, he goes them, but then he has like the nice floor to his game. No, this guy has the most crazy EKG fucking style of all time. And so I want to believe that it's that whole thing of like the classic genius quote, isn't it? It goes, a great player hits a shot no one else can hit, but a genius hits a shot no one else knows even exists. Like, that's what you want to believe with Hylissang. The problem with this is some of them don't exist, Hylissang. Like, I've said this before, you have done plays where the idea anyone can follow up and listen to you. They are 2 screens over sometimes when he goes in. Like, he's doing some of the mean ones that are outrageous. And so I never bought that. Like, if he's making space, no, you got it wrong. At this point, he is a space cadet, bro. Like, he just zones out sometimes and just fucking auto-ints into the game. It's crazy. And I will just say this. The reason it burns me, this is a little bit of bitterness, is because I've thought the whole time that Mikyx got to G2, that everyone acted like, right, it's number 1 Hylissang, number 2 Mikyx. You get number 2 Mikyx, and after that, it's no one. It's like, no, for me, it was always 1A, 1B. Like, I always thought these are 2 fucking amazing players. They have similarities. They also have some differences, but the floor to Mikyx's game's way better. He can synergize with way more AD carries. You have to kind of play somewhat the Hylissang style. So the reason I hate it is this, because I think of this last year of Mikyx on G2. Every time, they would even win games and the whole threads was, he's inting. And then they never saw when he did like the cool play in the middle of the game or saved the team fight. And I always used to think Hylissang and Mikyx at their peak were like the fucking flirting harassment meme. Hylissang could do all the same shit. And you're like, oh, good old Hilly, what a genius, the way he was going for that. Mikyx does it, and they're like, get him out, he's a fight. It's time for him to leave G2, he's a bomb, get him out the game. And I've never understood that, because to me, easily the one you could always back to the hilt was fucking Mikyx. He can always come back. He's come back about 3 times now. So I don't get the whole Hylissang thing at this point in time. I think they've gone. I think they've moved on. Kazi, whatever you've done, mate, you're going to have a divorce. That's just a bad marriage. It's going to bring you down as well. It's going to bring you down.
I would say I don't think Hylissang was that bad last year until Summer. And Summer, like, to me, he is the one who is the most to blame for Vitality not going to Worlds. Right?
Yeah.
Not going to the championship.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't go to Worlds, but they should have been in the championship for sure. They should have been a top 6.
Yeah.
Like, so that's what I would say. If you're saying that the environment is not good for rookies, I would say, Hylissang can make it a better thing for rookies. Okay, for Heretics.
Go on.
Okay, so
you got your work cut out for you on this one, mate.
Yeah, okay. Let's be careful about that. Let me think very carefully about this. Okay, so what I would say is, if Heretics Academy team does really, really well, and if Heretics LEC does not do well, and they go and make changes, premature changes, like if they make a change at the end of the split because they don't come top 8, it's possible. Unlikely, because they've got enough. They've got 2 wins. But their last week schedule is Vitality Koi G2, right? And so it's not an easy schedule. But let's say if Carlson and Kamilu are not in the team in Summer, then the question is, what was the point? Right? Like, if you are gonna if you're going to take somebody out of like LFL2 and you're not going to go and give him a full year to develop, what are you doing?
Why?
Right?
Yeah.
Why? Like just go and sign somebody, like go and sign Seren or Gyu or somebody like this, right? So you are making a choice to invest in the future by signing this guy. Okay, so you better, like, you know, if you hold on to him and you back him, fine, I give you respect for it. But if you kick him after 6 months, that's not on him. That's on you, right? That's on you for for not doing good scouting and not putting the environment on around him to survive. Now, I know Carlson really, really well. Carlson is like, the reason Carlson was on Heretics was because the Heretics with Ruby and Evie was better in scrims than on stage. And Evie, we would scrim ERL teams, and Evie would like literally murder every single top laner in that we scrimmed in ERLs, to the point where I was telling Evie, you know, stop solo killing him, right? Like you're only allowed to solo kill him twice, right? Like just stop, right? Because we need to get games. And the only top laner, ERL top laner, who would match him was Carlson, and this was Carlson as a 16-year-old. And I remember thinking, holy moly, like this guy has potential, right? Like he has hands, and he would even sometimes win if he had Fiora. Specifically Fiora. And that's why he was like, Heretics have internal stats, but he was like number 5 on the internal stats. And I was like, promote this guy, right? Like, look at this, like this guy has shown enough that he has potential, and he has really good work ethic and things like this. So I can see, I don't think it's going to be a bad situation for Carlson. Like, I think he could be on a team that loses, and I think he can learn a lot. But, you know, if you are bringing in these 2 rookies, then they better be there at the end of the year, right? Like, you know, and that is why I hold off judgment for this. I'm not too quick to condemn, because I will wait to see if Syke is on Vitality in summer, and if Kamalu and Carlson are on Heretics in summer. And if they are, I push back on the point. But if they're not, then I you know, maybe we'll have you know, in a couple of splits we'll have a follow back, and then you know, I'll go really, really hard.
Look, any pro player that has like a 70+ win rate on Fiora and Camille over like 10 to 15 games, it has got some hands to him. Like, you don't get to do that by just not having hands. I know it's already at tier 2, it's not done at LEC level, but you've got Fearless Draft coming up. If you can get there, you're not miles off. You got a couple wins. If you can get that one win, make sure you actually do get to playoffs and you do get to Fearless. I've cast a lot of Fearless because I did LDL for years, which is a Chinese Academy League, which is where the Fearless stuff really got pioneered. And what you would see there, and you still see to it there, and obviously LPL and stuff now as well, is Fearless tends to, at least for me, and I know certain casts and stuff to disagree with on me, but what that tends to do for you is show great players over great teams, to an extent, and I generalize. Because what happens is drafts become less cohesive, easy answers and easy meta blind picks that work in all scenarios disappear from the pools, and you can start banning things out. It's like, well, we've lost 2 engaged sports and I've banned another 3. Well, I'm in the LDL, where all of the players here in the AD carry players are Samira mains. That's what they all are. They all are at LDL. And now I can Samira Rel, and you do not have Alistair. You do not have Rel. You do not have Braum. You are going to die on repeat to my Samira one-trick, smashing your face in. Or my Fiora player in the top lane gets the opportunity for a phenomenal Fiora matchup without the easy answers and the easy drafts to deal with it. And you get those drafts which are about, this is about me. I have been given the tools and the pick and the draft to make this about my champion and not my team. And Carlson, if he gets to that Fearless point, you might see a little bit of that from him. And that would be really cool, especially for a player who a couple years ago still was trying to find his feet, was playing a lot of Renekton and Nara, not showing the other sides to his game. It still needs to be done. I don't think this is the most rookie-friendly position, but bluntly, a lot of these teams, particularly say Heretics, who are on a budget roster, don't have that budget to get good veterans in to give better space for someone like a Carlson or a Kamilu. But they've still got those couple wins. They could still be in a position to show off some of these players' talent. And I see where Peter is coming from. And I'm still not excited, but interested to see whether some of these players can show the other sides to them that they haven't had a chance to yet.
Yeah. I'll give you a quick angle just on Kamilu. The reason why I think the Kamilu pickup is insanity is because you are basically telling me you have the craziest eye ever for fucking League of Legends talent. You can watch a guy play in tier 2 of the French league and you know that he's already ready for LEC. Here's why this is insane. Because you didn't sign him last year. Here's who the mid lane is in fucking LEC this year. Humanoid, Caps, Jackies, Vladdy, Jojo Pion, Larson, Nuke, And then 2 fucking Rika's coming back and the Shazek guy. Like, bro, like, talk about throwing someone in the fucking deep end. Like, you better be like a world class, you better be Michael Phelps to get out of this one, mate. Do you see how many names I made like last, like the 7th best fucking mid laner or something? Like, this is cracked. Like, so this isn't in the past where there was some dodgy ass mid laners. Then also, here's why I hate it, because it combines with the point Peter made in my interview with him. You told me, not you, the org, told me all up and down last year that you always secretly wanted Zviru, and you're going to really give him a chance. You're going to work with him. You had one split that was all right. After that, you went, well, hit the bricks, mate. And then you brought in this guy from LFL. Here's how I think you would have had a smarter way to actually fulfill your promise and bring Camilla up. What you do is you keep Zwiru, you have Camilla waiting. Then if Zwiru fails after split 1, you go, sorry about that, guys. It didn't work out. Look, we gave you like 3 splits, Zwiru. It didn't work for you, so I did invest in you. I gave you a shot at it. By the way, he's even a stable mid laner. That might have helped, like the top lane example. And then here's where it's genius. Then when you bring in the guy from ERL 2nd Division, there's not the same pressure on him. Now people know sort of, well, he's coming in. By the way, if he shows anything in the first 2 games, people go, hey, there's something here. Like, I can see what they've done here. But you haven't, like, committed to a whole year with him. Because that's the thing. I sort of agree with you, Peter. I'll give you that. I'll give them a tiny asterisk that they can be judged at the end of the year, but only if you keep these rosters. If you change these rosters, then you made my point for me, mate. At that point in time, if you don't even believe in your players, then you can't get mad at me talking shit on them.
And it's easier to do again this year. I brought it up earlier, but the ERL system splits are lined up with LEC now, so there's no contract issues the way there were the last few years, and players got given more grace because there weren't easy replacements, because the buyouts were there. Not anymore. Players will move up and down. I nearly guarantee it.
And you could have just put this guy on your academy team and had him be there. Then you also could you could bring him in the scrims. There's so many other ways. By the way, Peter's put the blueprint for you how to do these things. You could have done this, but instead everyone thinks they're you, but they don't know they don't know your methodology, basically. But they think what your game was is pick up rookies. It's like, that was step 1. You guys think his plan is step 1, pick up rookies, question mark, question mark, question mark. They're top players and now I'm going to Worlds. Like the question mark's the whole thing, guys.
Yeah. I mean, let's see. It's 2 weeks in, but what I will say is,
okay,
Camille still looks very, very raw. But like, I think Heretics had 1 win against BDS, where Flackhead got like a lot of credit, and Flackhead was really good in that game. Yeah. But Carlson was teamfighting like a god in that game. And on, I think it was either Casanto and Besser, but I remember he had like a really, really good game. So it's not like he's showing nothing, and it's not like Sayak and Nak aren't showing anything. But again, let's come back. Let's circle back to this. I like to be positive, and I like to believe that people will hold themselves accountable. But yeah, let's see.
Yes.
Maybe I'm too positive.
Yes. Right. Initialise. What is your ugly point?
Oh, so I took a while to think about this one, because I was thinking, what do I actually consider ugly in the LEC? And obviously, especially as distinct to bad. And I think we've had a fairly good conversation about bad. And I kind of went for the stuff that actually makes me go, I don't want to see that in League of Legends. Not that, oh dear, that wasn't great. And what I ended up going for was something a bit out of game. And it was just basically the internal rogue drama that's been flying around Twitter recently. And basically, there was a manager from Rogue who put up a load of like allegations against, I think it was Fly, the general manager for Rogue, and a load of the Rogue staff members were putting very pointed GIFs and stuff up on Twitter in response. And it was all pretty nasty stuff. And when you're hearing from people like Adam that, some of the communication stuff in the team isn't feeling great, when you've got behind the rooms, when you've got internal drama from your management, the people who are supposed to be offering you the stable, sort of like the stability and the structure for you to play the game, when you've got all this stuff going on behind the scenes, how the hell are you going to play the game properly? Like, I mean, I point to FPX last summer, where you had this ridiculous run where Milky Way comes up, a guy I'd been yelling from the heavens about for all of 2023. He comes up and I go, see, I told you so. This guy is legit. They have this incredible spring. Summer comes round and the management screw with the top laner. And he leaves the team under really ugly circumstances and there was like legal stuff getting involved. And the team starts falling apart and Milky Way's trying too hard and the team doesn't look good and the top lane is shifting. And it really messes with the team. And you look at Rogue and you go, well, you got this stuff going on in the background with your general manager on top of everything else with the team struggling. That's not it. I don't want to see that in the LEC. I don't want to see don't get me wrong, it's good popcorn drama for the fans. That's kind of entertaining in a sort of like like
Days of the Lives or whatever.
Jeremy Kyle
exactly,
kind of stuff,
exactly.
like stuff for the Four Horsemen kind of vibe maybe down there. But that's not actually what I want from my top tier of League of Legends in Europe. That's not on. And it's somewhat irrelevant how much truth there is to it as well, because the drama and the public stuff going on around it isn't what the players need or want, and that's pretty messy too. And I think that's pretty ugly. There's a little bit more to it in terms of additional stuff in the past, but I'll leave it there for now as well.
Right, where are you going on this, Peter?
I honestly, genuinely, this isn't a dodge. I genuinely don't know what you're talking about, because I just didn't see it.
There you go. Yeah.
No, but like seriously,
Sure.
like it was just like an ex-employee.
There's a guy who even used to work for Riot. Basically, what was implied, I'll do the Cliff Notes version, was that he sort of implied that Fly was actually abusive as like a boss and would sort of like scream at people or like be very impolite as a person, basically. And they thought this was unprofessional. As I said by Initialise, it actually became almost like a fucking League of Legends coaching Me Too moment, where suddenly all these other people who, not even famous people, came out the woodwork and were sort of like similar things to me. And also the guy himself was implying he'd spoken to other people that had been in the org. They had similar stories to tell. And so basically, the reason why I think this is really a drama, just to tee you up, is because people already know, since that's the general manager of Fly, of Rogue, a lot of people don't like the direction they took after the championship roster. They dismantled it piece by piece and got worse pieces in it. It's become a much worse squad. So a lot of people, because of Odo, already had the idea this guy might have been the architect of disharmony, as it were. So now, essentially, he is public enemy number one, Peter. Spoiler. I was going to say this was my point, but I'm going to get his ass soon. So it's all good. You just wait on that one.
Okay. But basically, so I didn't hear about to be honest, the only thing I really know about Fly is the Odo stuff, which obviously is alleged. I don't want to like get myself in legal trouble or anything. It's alleged that he told people that Odo was retiring so that other teams wouldn't try to sign. But honestly, like I need to go and find out about this drama. Like this is one of the things that, like I genuinely don't know. Like, all I will say is, yeah. I mean, sometimes I have definitely been on orgs where management want to be the stars, and even if they don't work on the team day to day, they're very quick to claim credit when things go badly, and very quick to wash their hands when things don't go well, and claim no accountability. So what I've definitely been on teams like that. So what I will say is, it's I'm not saying Fly's like this, but what I'm saying is that sometimes you have to take the good with the bad, right? If you're going to go and claim credit when things go really, really well, then you also have to be in a situation where you're willing to take blame when things go badly. You can't just have it both ways, right? And that's I leave my point on that.
Right, you go on.
Because the only thing I'll add to that is like in some ways it's immaterial whether it's true or not. The fact is it's out in public and it's causing additional drama, and we've already seen the team's not having a great time. You know what the players really need? Your general manager getting into a public tit-for-tat with legal issues involved, theoretically. That's not pretty. It's straight up ugly.
Did he reply?
I don't know. I genuinely don't. So, but it's like there's a lot of public stuff going on around about it. So.
Sure. Okay. Interesting.
By the way, I personally think he will never reply. I actually think, in this sense, I'll give him that. Maybe he's smart enough to know you never give this any attention or any oxygen, because, by the way, it can't look good for you based on the stories I've heard. They're real. That's what I've heard. So, first of all, if people don't know, if you're a Summoning Insight fan, you will know that once upon a time, all those teams, Rogue, into fucking when they were Rocket before, etc. This is a squads where actually I sometimes think they did some shrewd GMing back in the day. Even some of the people thought were memes, like Profit and all those, some of them were all right. They weren't that bad as gambles, you know what I mean? And then the problem I have is this. That's because, I'll tell you though, Fly was one of those people who was very proactive in the scene behind closed doors. He would reach out to journalists. He would reach out to people who were... He's a guy where he was putting out there like sort of reasons why you do things, or people that you're going to pick up little like that's really a great way to ingratiate yourself with people. But the issue I had was this. I never disrespected him openly before, but I would say this. I have a really good read on character when I talk to someone one-on-one. And the thing I never liked about this guy is he always gave me mad respect, but he always had the like sort of thing behind it of like, it's a bit of sycophancy here. Like, you're just trying to like blow smoke up my arse and make me seem like I know it. Oh, it's really important to give you this info, and you know. But then I don't really know that it's true. This seems like that's like your like +4 charm value you're just applying here to try and like get through on stuff and give a reason and play defense for why you did a move and hope that someone takes that opinion out there. So I will say he did used to play the media quite well, but when I heard the Odo and this stuff, whatever we're alleging happened, if that is what happened, if you didn't just take a guy who just won the European Championship for you, remember how many fucking orgs had ever won LEC at that time, by the way. You took a guy that won the fucking championship, then had a banger Worlds where he made top 8. That was the first Worlds where we had 4 from all these regions, and you realised nobody's supposed to get out of groups. That's even make top 8. It's fucking legit. And they got out of a group, by the way. You had no business getting out of it. You had DRX and fucking top esports in it. Are you fucking laughing? You're never supposed to get out of that group. So you take that guy and you fire him, and then even worse, you not only like don't get him for next year, if it's alleged that you actually tried to essentially kill his career because you had a beef, nah, mate, there's lines that you can never cross with me. Fuck you forever. Kurva. That's some bullshit right there, mate. You don't fucking kill people's careers, or I'll fucking kill your career. How about that? So I told you, this guy's in my crosshairs, mate. I've got all the sources. I've got all of it, mate. Once the dossier is ready, the video will come out, and via con Dios. And here's the thing. Luckily, I'll tell you this as well. I don't think he's long for this world anyway in League of Legends, because the story for the last 2 years has been eventually Falcons is going to come in and buy this fucking rogue slot for loads of money, and then it'll all be put behind us and swept under the rug, and then we'll just go into the glorious Falcons era. If you think about this, right, the reason why the sycophancy thing rubbed me the wrong way was then the arc of Rogue. Because I just want to rewind people's memory. I can remember these things. I remember when Rogue came in the LEC with one of the shittest rosters ever constructed. Just a trash-ass roster. And then you go and look, right, they had this amazing set of players in the academy. Even then, by the way, amazing is only meaning like you still did have fucking like Larson waiting in the wings. Finn was still considered a prospect at this time. Remember the championship roster, right? When you then come up, so what you're telling me is I found you didn't. Everyone a year before already knew this guy was good. A lot of people thought he would come up with Humanoid and Nemesis and all these people. He had offers from teams. He could have been there. So one, you didn't really discover him like that, but you got him into your team. Then I have this angle, right? Think of the championship roster. It had Comp, right? But before Comp, you had Hans Sammer. Oh, did you discover Hans Sammer, did you? In like fucking, what, like 2020 or so? You discovered Hans Sammer. It was already on Misfits and all the other teams, you fucking idiot. There's no mystery there. The mystery was, like, how did his career drop down that he had to be picked up by you and rediscover his career? Then I'll give you credit. I'll give you credit for the other two, the junglers. Malrang you can have credit for. Inspired also, by the way, was obvious. It's just he was really young. There's no eye test to this, boys. Everyone knows these players were good. Then on the Trimble, I'll give you credit on that one. That's one where, again, that was like you gave him his chance. So you got a few players here, but it wasn't like you're like the mastermind architect. So you make this team. By the way, once this lineup is set in this court, you're always top. It's looking awesome. By the way, at this point, you'd be winning like GM of the year. You're an org that's not even considered a big org. You don't even get the big names. You don't have the big $1 million budgets necessarily until later when they got bought by that massive company. Then here's my problem. You win the championship. Your finals, win the championship, beat G2 no less, by the way, in fucking Caps' peak. You win the championship, and then the story I have heard, it's tied to the Odo one, goes, then you did this fucked thing where you decided, winning the championship, I could go back to back, I guess, but then where do I get the credit? It's the same team again. And you decided, I am going to speculate, I'm going to piece by piece dismantle the championship roster. Then when I put other pieces in, I must be the genius. It had to be me that did it. It was never about Larson winning championships and Odo. It's about I'm going to be the guy who brings in the guy at top lane. I think I've got the eye for this guy here. Oh, Trimpy, a little bit too argumentative in the team. Get him out. I want fucking Advien. Jesus Christ. Like, this is how I know you have no eye for the game. So I think for real, the hubris of Fly is the reason why Rogue went from one of the best performing cores in the whole LEC to some of the most irrelevant years ever. And even worse, you committed the ultimate sin. Anyone who knows football, this reference is straight fire. Everyone tells me because they're Spurs and it's fun to hate on them. Oh, Spurs, they're shit, they're idiots, they're dickheads. I'll tell you what, they score so many fucking goals though, don't they? If my team's not going to challenge for the championship, can I at least have 3 goals a game? That's awesome to watch. You didn't even do that. You made bad Rogue teams that were also like a fucking, you'd have to like strap me down like Malcolm from Clockwork Orange to make me watch these games. And I love fucking Larson. Do you know how hard it was to watch these games? It was insane how bad and what a bad product they were putting on the screen. And here's the worst thing, I'll reference what Peter said about budget earlier. You weren't working with the 10th budget in the league. You had millions of dollars. You had, by the way, at one point, people even wanted to join this team to play with some of the big names and get their chance at the top. So this is one of the craziest mismanagements I've ever seen. I'll give some credit for the way up, but holy fuck is the way down bad. And then after all that, I could just hit on you competitively. If I find out you're an arsehole and you're chewing people out like you're Steve Jobs, the only thing that ever comes close to justifying that is that you are a genius and you get the results at the end, mate. You can't chew people. Perks found this out. You can't chew people out and then fucking be shit at your job and then lose. At that point, they just turn around eventually and go, he's the arsehole, sir. And they go, yes, get rid of him. Now, in this scenario, I guess you're not going to fire yourself, but I think this whole thing's insane, mate. I can't handle it. It's actually one of the worst. And I've heard there are way more stories than have come out so far. So as I say, it's on my list. I'll process him in the stack as it comes down. When it gets there, I'll do my video on it. Because I think this story has to be told, especially because the cracks have started to leak and some of the info is coming out now. So people know there's something going on there. I think I can blow this thing wide open.
Yeah. Like, I've got one last anecdote, because again, all I've got is the public stuff, but one of the ones that raised my eyebrows a couple years ago was Ruddy Esports, who have been putting out wild content in the ERLs. They've been joined up with Dominate, done that kind of thing. They did a video a couple years ago where they basically did a fake behind-the-scenes video of like a post-match scrum where they were getting the coach come in and talk to them, and it was a very British parody. In the kind of vein, something like Four Lions, if you've ever watched that movie, where they play it so straight that you're not sure whether it's a joke or not. You're not sure whether it's a parody or not. And the longer you watched it, the more you realize, no, wait, they're being way too ridiculous. It's all put on. This isn't real. It's all actually fake. But it's close enough to being real, to being potentially true, that it's actually quite uncomfortable. And that's kind of part of the power of that parody. And they basically, in this one, they had one of their owners in come in, Regan, who comes in and he plays his character. He starts yelling at the players about their performance because they lost a game. And it starts off just standard yelling, gets more and more and more and more ridiculous until the end of it all, where all the players are trying to keep their faces straight because it's just completely out of whack. And it's all basically fake. It was all to set up a roster swap coming in because someone was finally free to come play for the team. And it kind of ended up going a little bit controversial, particularly in Europe, where they don't have the same kind of history of parody. And people took it as being true, and they're going, what the hell is happening? And Fly quote tweeted this. And he basically says, yeah, sometimes you just need to yell at your players like this. And the Ruddy guys were like, what are you talking about? This was a joke. This was a call out for people who do this. What are you saying? And it swiftly gets deleted. But I remember that very vividly going on. I'm fairly certain some people from ERL still have that screenshot somewhere. And that raised an eyebrow too. And again, all I have is the public stories. And that was from a couple years ago. And it could just be like a hot take being done on Twitter.
Sure. But
it's still not a good look. And when you're adding in a few of these other not good looks, I don't know what to say. And that one particularly, I was like, really? On Twitter? With a fake parody video that you're agreeing with?
Yep.
Right, let's go on then. Peter, what is your ugly point?
My ugly point is about a little bit about the rookies, but a little bit about Parus. So Parus, for people who don't know, wow, this seems so minor in comparison to like I can't believe I cannot believe I just missed this. Like I mean, I guess it shows what. And I think I can guess what Thorin's about to talk about next, but my one is quite minor in comparison, which is that ERL to LEC movement, right? And basically, my ugly point here is about the responsibility that BDS are putting on Parus and the expectations that they are putting on Parus. Because last year, Lavrov hasn't had the best start at G2. But BDS had some of the best macro in the game, in the league, last year. And that was because Lavrov had full agency to basically do whatever he wanted on the map. In the mid game, I don't know who was doing the shot calling on BDS, but I know that the one with the agency was Lavrov. Ice would sit under his tower, he would wave clear, and Lavrov opens through side. He goes and plays into nuke side. Adam is normally a weak side, and then they go and make things happen as a mid jungle duo. BDS Academy, also a very successful team. But they win in a very, very different way, right? They win by basically Skumond and Parus opening through mid often, going into Rika's side, right? As opposed to the other way. But essentially, his responsibility, his agency on the map is to cover people's paths rather than escort the escort side laners. Now, the problem is that what we saw is that he's been basically given an impossible task on BDS because to me, Thorin, you mentioned TH and Vitality on the Hapgood. I think Parus has basically been set up to fail. He's been put with a jungler who wasn't in the BDS system last year. I don't know what happened on BDS, right? Like, I respect Striker as a coach, but I don't know how you can then start with Shio and Skewmond on your roster and end up with neither of them, right? Like, it should be impossible, right? Like, it should. I literally cannot work out what happened there. So now they brought in 113, who's a very, very he will make things happen, right? Whether or not you like what he is making happen, he is going to make things happen. And it's kind of put Parus in this really, really awkward situation where he's not opening two sides, right? He's basically playing almost always around mid lane. Very rarely ever playing opening two sides. That's something I think to keep track of. Maybe he'll change, maybe they'll realize that he's not doing this and it will adjust, but he basically can't play this role anymore. He's playing with a jungler who is not setting up for him to make the plays. Like Skewmond and Rico, Skewmond and him had very good synergy, whereas him and 113 don't. And he is basically costing them a lot of games, right? Like he had a situation where against Koi, basically he loses the game because he over-aggresses a couple of times in situations he doesn't need to. He had a game against Fnatic where they're more than fine in the game, and then he goes to the side lane to defend Fnatic's cross-map dive and engages a 2v3 instead of just, they take the dragon, they trade it for bot tier 1, they lose the top tier 1 tower. But he's going and forcing these engages. And, for me, this is an example of somebody who looks out of his comfort zone. And it makes me wonder what's going on. What's going on the side of BDS? Because again, BDS, we talk about budget. Like they have quite a high budget. Like what are they doing to integrate their rookie into the team? Right? If you wanted to put one, let's say you thought Skewmond is going to G2. Okay, maybe G2 have spoken to him. He's made the decision he's going to G2. You've decided you really hate Shio. I don't know why you would hate Shio, but maybe you don't. There was synergy issues with the team that maybe we're not seeing. I personally think Shio is really good, but okay, you have these synergy issues, so you need to remove Shio. And 113 is the guy you want to work with because strikers work with 113 and they had success in the past, right? Put a support next to him that can play with him, right? Like, put somebody that will be more that will synergize better with. Maybe bring in Sten, maybe who's on Heretics, maybe bring in a different support. But Parus, if you're going to put Parus into the team, make sure you put him in an environment where he can succeed. And it doesn't look like he's been put in a position to succeed. That's what I would say.
What do you think, Initialise?
So the thing is, this is really interesting to me as well, because I had it on pretty good authority from a number of teams who were looking at Parus in the off-season. He was a really hot commodity. He was right up there as the best performing sport in the ERLs. People really, really wanted him, to the point where like G2 were looking at him and said, no, you can have Labrov, but you can't have Parus. We're keeping him. Like that kind of level of they were willing to give up Labrov, but they wanted Parus be all and end all. They were that impressed with him from ERL level, and I can't blame them on that front because he was playing really, really well. But I have to agree with Peter in the sense that, look, you are still stepping up. You've been playing for a long time at ERL. You're not exactly a rookie in the sense of you've only been playing the game for a few years competitively. But you're still a rookie to LEC level, and you're being asked to come up and basically be the tip of the spear for the team with 113 in a way you're not really as used to doing. Even, of course, you still have some of the champions that can do that. The way you do that is quite different, and that's a little problematic. I think then when you add in the fact that Nuke and Ice have been okay. They have not been at the level they were performing at 2 points last year where, whether or not that was their average level, the highs they were hitting were really, really high. Nuke and Ice were hitting top 3 in the league in terms of level of performance. But I mean, for Nuke example, I think that was probably a bit of an overperformance to an extent. But they've been solidly okay this split. They've not been doing the same. And part of that's obviously the setup from jungle support not being the same. But I also think they're not delivering as much as well. And that's not making Parus' life as easy either. I still think he's really good. I think he has the talent to adapt, but I don't think it is a very easy road that has been set up for him to do this.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't think he's going to be dropped. Right?
No,
like,
no.
But it's just he's in like, whereas Nako is in like the best position to make him look really good. Parus is in like literally like it's
one of the worst. Yeah,
hardest.
he's definitely being exposed a lot more. There's not a lot of pieces around him to play the Parus style. Yeah.
My problem with this off-season is because everyone heard, most people, by the way, never watched the Academy Leagues. They just heard the story, BDS Academy is better than BDS and they're fucking going to win all these games and wow, they're better than most LEC teams. And then they also saw Remain post those scrim things where it's like, fucking hell, they're scrimming G2 before the finals and they're even mixing it up and taking a game and stuff like that. Got people hyped, right? But then people did the classic League of Legends thing. I think League of Legends is the hardest game to tell who the stars of a team are if a team's winning. It just makes everyone look good. Like it's the ultimate game of a rising tide carries all ships. Whereas, by the way, in the other way around, it also can be really, really hard to see if someone's actually still good. When an upset or a Larson's on a bad team, are they good players still? The game snowballs against you. You don't get the resources. You don't have the peel. You don't have what you need, the resources to win the game. So the problem I see with the BDS one is this, right? Parus is a mega player. I've heard loads of hype from the GMs on the league. They wanted this guy. So you have to understand, in BDS Academy, the analogy is the Beatles, right? If you're SK, bad luck, you got some of the Beatles, but you got George Harrison and Ringo. The point is, in that team, the ones you wanted were the fucking jungle and support. They were Paul McCartney and fucking John Lennon. So you got one. You got one in this team who, by the way, could have been in much bigger orgs potentially. I also think the steal of the last season was irrelevant because somehow you got him like to sort of like do the unofficial perks agree during Worlds when everyone else is still playing and they're not sure what their rosters are. So I thought for sure this guy's surely a lock to be in Fnatic or something like that, guys. It's going to be a mega squad. So somehow you've stolen that player. So your gamble, really, your main gamble is the jungler, right? You're gambling on 1-1-3, which I agree with you, Pete. You've done it because it's Striker's boy from back in before. By the way, when he also had him in the Carmine Cup, not only did the win EU Masters, but I can tell you, it was a fucking nightmare in that team for him specifically, with a certain big egoed Swedish ADC who might have made his life hell and caused the fans to be against him, etc. So I do think Striker's seen that person and he's got that soft spot like Peter does for his players where it's like, look, they're not using him right. Give him back here. I'll make him work. And I think in their team, I think the reason they upgraded over Shio was this. To me, Nuke and Shio worked well together, but where the fuck is the bite? How's that jungle mid ever going to go up against like Knight and Jun? You know what I mean? Like, it'd be over just from the hands, bro. They'd never be able to win the game. So I think in their team, my perception is they wanted like a little bit more firepower or explosive factor, and they saw that as 1-1-3. That he will play in Italy.
He's a go button.
He'll go for that shit.
Yeah.
So I think they see that as like, right, let's not just be the team. Because if you remember, the way BDS played last year was amazing if you actually want, sadly it failed at the end, to just grab the third spot. You're probably not going to win LEC, but you can be a consistently good team that were never bad, by the way. You can be a team that has a style that works, to play around the objectives. They were actually good at it, by the way. They even used to, with all those bad teams, take so many advantages of teams that couldn't fight around objectives or set up wrong or go in wrong. And the problem I have is this. When you look, first of all, that's where the stability of the jungle mid's gone. You don't have that. And then secondly, listen, this is where when I talk to coaches, I'm aware, listen, motherfucker, I haven't got you hooked up to a lie detector, but you don't always tell me all the truth. So let's just say I once asked, when I saw all these like setups with Lavrov, especially on those like hook champs, looked like he was the man. Like, it looks like, is he calling this? And then I asked who was the shot caller in BDS. Now, I was just told one word. I wasn't even given an answer. This is how I know there's some fucking gamesmanship going on. They go, it's Nuke. And I'm like, first of all, I don't believe you. But secondly, the idea of that's the shot caller. Notice he didn't say he's just a primary shot caller or he calls on himself on champions. What you've done there probably is, Nuke maybe is the shot caller or the captain, but maybe I'm still right. Maybe Lavrov did it around the objectives or something. So I thought actually people underrated Lavrov last year. If you go back to the first splits, he was fucking mega. He fell off a little bit towards the summer. I don't hate why G2 thought this could be like a mechanical side grade to Mikyx. This could be the player we want. Maybe Hans Sammer thinks, hey, I'm better than Ice. Put this guy with me. He's going to be dope. And he did work really well with Ice. I agree with you on the Parus one though. On paper, all the hype I've heard, and I've seen a few moves from him, do look like this could be a mega player. It's just that in this squad, again, it looks like I'll just say the same thing again. Run down the squad. Where are the big personalities? You've got Irrelevant, literal German fucking top laner. We'll just play tank whenever you ask him to. You've got fucking 113, a guy who has had a tortured career over his whole time. I'm sure he's just trying to fucking make the grade. Nuke is Nuke, as aka poor man's Larson. I'll say that forever, motherfucker. Win a split. Do something about it. And then you've got Ice, I think really good. Literally, I don't know if he can actually even be someone who can call. In fact, if you ever saw us in ADC, it looked like they band-aided him, mate. They didn't put him on certain ADCs and just go in. He wasn't on some Kazi shit. They very carefully put him, like you should, on the rails of where he should go. And I tell you what, if you wanted someone to click the fucking mouse, he's really good. But I think Labrov clearly did have a synergy with him, and you're just taking a rookie and going in with this Korean bot, basically. A really good bot, high-skilled one, but you're not going in with, like, there's no, I don't know what the dynamic was. So I think this is a mess of a team. Here's the thing, if at the end of the year they do really well, a lot of praise will go to Striker again. He saw something, the vision was there, he fit the pieces, he moulded it. That's all great shit. It's not starting out very well, though. I was hoping this would start out as like the fourth best team. It's a bit sus at the moment.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll push back a little bit on Irrelevant. I think he's not had a very good split so far. I think last year he was actually genuinely pretty good. He was one of the
I just said he was the steal of the off-season, bro.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry. Yeah, but I mean, but in terms of more, I think he can do more than just be a Renekton player. I think this year, though, he has.
Everyone said that every split, mate. Here's the problem: he can play carry, but it's like Odo mate. Does he want to, and will they let him? That's the question.
Okay,
it's not can he, you know.
Okay, there was a period in Odo's career, I swear, though, where he would just because there was that joke around Odo. It was like, look, he'll just pick the losing matchup and go even in it because he's got this kind of chip on his shoulder about the fact he could take a bad matchup and do well in it anyway.
Irrelevant could do that too, by the way. That's kind of also his game as well. By the way, that's why it's weird. That's why there's a difference between what your skill set is and what you think your skill set is. That's always the key thing for me. So I don't see Irrelevant, I'm sorry, as someone who goes like, hey, give me all the resources. It's my time to... Nah, it's just not who he is, mate. I don't think that's who that player is.
I want to see him on Gwen more. I've heard rumors about the Gwen. He's got a few champions like that, which I think he could do some really fun stuff. But I need to see him have the confidence, and he's got a squad around that is used to having a top laner do weird shit with draft. Like Adam was on this roster before, right? They're not exactly unused to a top laner with weirder champion pools. And fine, be able to play Renekton. Nice to have those blind pick, whatever style champions that fit in any composition. But I think for Irrelevant to really prove it on this roster, I need to see him actually pick out some of his weirder champions and prove he's worth being here, right? You've taken the steal, then show you can be more than a bit player.
Bro, it's like a bad fucking joke setup. Like an arrogant French guy who's not as good as he thinks he is, a quiet German, and a silent Korean walk into a bar. No one says anything. There you go. It's free. I can do it all day long, Peter. Don't even worry about it. You'll see on future episodes, mate. Right, let's go then. My last point of the show is my ugly point. And look, this was always going to be a point on this show, so I knew someone would bring it up, so I'll do it myself. It's just the context that Mikyx left G2. Because here's what I don't get with G2 now. You also had some of the best GMing ever. I still think you do, by the way. I still think that's actually very good GMing in general. Look, every lineup doesn't have to work, but I do think there's always going to be a flaw to their teams. I think they've done interesting. I think actually one thing they've done I can appreciate from managers in football and sports is it looks like their off-season moves aren't just, he's sick, bro, pick him up. It's like, actually, I think this is like something we needed in the team, or we needed to like upgrade this, or we needed to change something, and that could have made us even better. Maybe that makes us relevant internationally. Maybe this establishes a synergy we didn't have before. The problem is this. Holy shit, do they also let generational players go? The Wonder one, I can handle that one. It actually seemed like his time had gone. I do not understand the Mikyx and the Yankos ones. Those ones are just crazy to me. Like, the idea these guys are done. What? And also, this is where those are the ultimate players that you do not know what you've got till they're gone. You just don't. And I don't care that they won the championship in the meantime. There's a reason why these players were still relevant. In case of Mikyx was mega. Yankos had that time on a Rex. He was really, really good. I don't get the Mikyx one at all. That is the player last year who I think is the most maligned player I've ever seen. Almost, I mean, no, wait, they did sweep the whole fucking season. And he was treated like he was treated like the floating harassment me. He was treated like that was Hylissang's worst split, every split except the first one. It was mental, bro. I would watch games where he would fucking get caught, Then in the mid game, he'd like poppy alt the carry out of the fight, they win the fight, or he'd like make like a one like crucial play where he's inting, they come to collapse on him, but that allows the team to do something. Like fucking hell, you don't trip over and do that many good players, guys. There has to be something behind the eye, between the ears and behind the eyes going on there. So I cannot believe they gave this player up. Like, I'm going to say the obvious fucking heresy that everyone hates, because if you want to go the other direction, I think Hans Sammer is one of the most overrated LEC players ever. Not because he's not good, he's always actually been very good when he was in the right teams, but people treat him like he's the generational talent. I don't get it, mate. Mikyx was the generational talent in the bot lane for me, so I think it's so ugly the way it's left. Obviously, it doesn't help that the team's doing badly. And I just think, absolutely, you have done what my buddy Carlos would never have done. You have given a generational talent, potentially still with prime years left, to Fnatic, who now might win the LEC over you. Like, bro, Carlos would excommunicate you from G2. You have violated all of his rules. 1, players do not go to Fnatic. 2, generational players do not let their contracts run out. 3, we do not fucking, like in this scenario, pick up the wrong players. Like, if we do that, there's a price to pay. We're always saying we're trying to win worlds. So I think this one's ugly as fuck. It's not even like it's the worst move. It could have gone better. Maybe it still will, but it looks so bad right now. It's egg on your face.
I think the thing is that G2 felt they had to make a move because they'd fumbled Worlds twice in a row with this roster. And they went, look, okay, we need to make some changes. So where are we making the changes? Are we changing caps? Oh, God, no. BB, well, are we realistically getting a better top laner in terms of carry potential, flexibility? You can do Zac top and all these things? No. And we play through our solo lane super well, and that's always been a G2 identity thing. Hans Sammer, I mean, do we really want to go for another AD carry? Like, who can we get? Maybe Upset, I guess. You know, like, do you want to take that risk after a dodgy year? And you go, okay, well, where are we taking the moves? Mickey, there's been they're like you could call it out, right? Like, his highs were exceptional last year, but it was a little bit streaky. There were some downs with the highs.
Okay.
And even if he was doing some really good things in terms of setting up vision for the big G2 Cascade players, so they get one play and suddenly all the waves are shoved and they can get 3 turrets and a dragon and the game's over. A lot of that comes off Mikyx's really smart map moves and map setups, but he would often do that a little bit isolated from the team. And Yike was struggling to have a truly effective champion pool, right? So I think you go, okay, well, Yike makes some sense to try and shift out. And if you're feeling like Mickey's the synergy issues, maybe you try and shift. So I get the thought process, but I still agree that Mikyx is, at this point for me, the best European support of all time. Hylissang could still fight for it, but I think on the whole, I think at this point, Mikyx has earned it. And he's been really, really, really good for years. And does half a bad split really take that away? I don't know. I still think I think if that point, if you are going to get rid of those players, though, Labrov was the most consistent high-level support last year, at least for me. So that makes sense if you're going to take the risk. And then if you're looking for a jungler from ERLs, I did have a chat with a few of the G2 people about him when I'd heard the rumor Skumon was getting picked up, and I was chatting around, and they were saying, and at least for me, when we were chatting about ERL junglers, Skumon was the most consistent, least volatile jungler and the most well-rounded ERL jungler. So if you're going to take a risk on an ERL jungler, it probably was Skumon. There were a couple of the junglers who had possibly more flashy highs, but were way less consistent with it. So at that point, you're taking the risk. But the point is, you were still gambling on a back-to-back championship roster, one of whom is the generational best support of all time that you're switching out because you think you can't get higher with this one. You're always taking a gamble with that. I think they've probably at least currently gambled lower. And by giving away this piece to try and find an Exodia, if you know what I mean, find that magical synergy you need to finally get another shove at Worlds, another shove at MSI, you've given Mikyx to Fnatic, who's going with Upset, who's having a revival split. You're looking at Humanoid, who's looking like the champion of old, and you're going, oh dear God, we may have made a mistake here. I still get where I can see where the gambles were made, though, and the thought process behind them. I just don't think the gambles have paid off quite yet. They might yet. But this is the most competitive LEC has looked at a long time. Sure. And part of that is just some of these insane players have gone to other teams. Like, really? Yike's thriving on Karmi Core. Mikyx is thriving on Fnatic. Guess who the top 2 teams in the league are right now?
Sure. I mean, it's true. I think that that in the past, G2 would not have let Yike and Mickey go to these teams. But I mean, for the LEC as a whole, it's great.
It's great, yeah. No, for the competitive leagues, it's phenomenal. I'm very happy, but yeah.
But I will say, so I think Labrov was really valuable So the fact that you're telling me that Nuke is the primary shot caller on BDS,
At least that's what I'm being told, you know.
Yeah,
I'm not sure I believe that.
I just don't believe it, I know.
but you know, like it looked to me like Lavrov was the one with the agency, right? And you look at G2, who's the one who has the mid game agency? It's Caps, right? Like, I mean, Caps is the one who's the playmaker. He's the one who's making things happen. Even if he's on weak side, he's the one who's like creating things. And you can't have everybody on your team creating things all the time, right? Like, otherwise your team has no structure, right? So,
Tell that
so
for
I
G2
think,
2019.
yeah, sure. But then they took it in turns according to who was in the game.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
But it wasn't like Perks every single game was the one with the agency, or like they just found a way to put their egos aside, right? But firstly, you know, okay, so again, this is Lavrov going from a role where he is the man into one where he is like the third option on G2. Probably it's like Caps number 1, BB number 2, Lavrov number 3, right?
That's fair.
And you've given Mickey to Fnatic, who did better when they had like a lot of agency from support when Tribute was there, right? Like, and what I would say is that Mickey in the G2 Fnatic game was like playing like a man. Literally go back and watch a game, right? Between like 3:30, 4:30, he literally goes and wins mid lane. He goes into enemy jungle, invades enemy jungle, goes and wins bot lane, goes and dies. Like he wins the entire game within like 45 seconds in a way that he was able to do on teams in a way that he's able to do because he's on Fnatic. So in fact, they may have like put him in an even better position on Fnatic than he was on G2 because now he gets to be the guy, right? Like who's the guy on Fnatic? It's Razor. It's not Oscar. Like Humanoid can do it, but has done it less in previous years, and it's not upset, right? So it's going to be Razor and him, like dominating the early game. And I will say, when I've spoken to Eastern coaches, besides Caps, Mickey is the person that they tell me that they study the most. Because like he'll have a ward innovation, like he'll place a ward in a certain position, or like he'll have a certain setup that he's done. And you know, maybe they may love watching Hillside, but they'll tell. But when I say who do you study, they'll say Caps number 1, Mickey number 2, right? And you don't your hands. It's debatable whether your hands fall off, but your game knowledge and your innovation skills don't fall off. And to me, that is kind of a gift. And I'm, you know.
Razok is crying tears of happiness right now. Like, this is the guy he's working with. Like, my life is so much easier.
I mean, who replaced Dano? Dano must, like the guy who replaced Dano must be thinking, "Holy shit, this job is so easy." Yes. You know, like I just have to. But yeah, like But what I would say about G2 is, you know, we can make light of G2, but they only lost to KC because Yike got 2 steals in a row, like back to back. You know, they're still a very, very scary team.
Once they ward around Atacam properly, they'll be good. It's just like not that it felt like a foregone conclusion in years gone by that G2 would win the league. Yeah. I'm not sure it's not that this year. They may well still do it. They may well prove it works out, but they are not the de facto best team in the league.
But my problem is that 2 years ago they took a gamble on Yike, and then Yike wasn't as good as he was hyped in his first year. He by second year he was probably one of the best runners in the league. But first year, you took like a worse year from Yike in order to get your payoff in the second year, right? He was there towards the end of the first year, but like the first 2 splits weren't that great, right? Like and now you just scrap it all and just go and start again with Skewman. Like, what did Yike do to deserve that? Right? Like, to me, that rubs me up the wrong way, right? Like, sure, you need to make a change. I mean, if logically the move makes sense, but you know, it feels like making a change for the sake of making a change, and you've made your competition much, much stronger.
What I hate is what I referenced earlier when you let specifically like generational jungle and support go. Is Peter nailed it. We have the same concept in Counter-Strike for people who are like supportive elements or the in-game leader. And it's that eventually you can even not have hands and still be really good in the team, because what scales is experience at being a really good player in top teams. Anytime you bring a rookie and he has none of that, He's never been to Worlds. He doesn't know what happens when you face Carrier and fucking Canyon and these demons that just like, holy shit, I've never even seen some of the stuff they're doing. Like, these other guys not only have done it, they've, by the way, competed against those people and actually had real good games, but also they've played with a million other great players and different styles of play. And look, I won't, on the last one, on the Hand Sam one, I've got a last shot across the bow. I won't say that he didn't play well with Mikyx. If you actually go to the first split they played together, holy shit was that fire. That's why in MSI, that was the one they were supposed to go deep in. Bro, they were like leading the world with like the fucking bot lane just smashed through the whole league every single time. But after that, there've been these ups and downs where it felt like one was good and one was bad. And Hansa would have a few dodgy games. Mikyx was on for that split, then they're off. And so all I'll say is this, if you're Hans Sammer, if you want to believe you are this generational talent, you're going to be mentioned with Reckless and Caps and Perks and Soaz and Yankos and Mikyx and Hillers, the greatest players to ever come out of this region. I'm just going to throw this out there. These are 3 support players that you managed to make look bad playing next to you, because I can tell you something very unique about Mikyx. It's not like Hillesang where you have to play for Hillesang. Mikyx will absolutely accommodate his ADC. He will do what the ADC wants. And by the way, if that even means you don't even get to roam that much and be Mikyx, he'll do it. It's one of the reasons also why I hold the reckless period against him. So I'll just say this. Here's 3 names that didn't really work out by the end with Hans Sammer. So he had Gorilla. Gorilla, by the way, at the time was like a GOAT candidate for support and had just come off winning the LEC the year prior. And obviously, remember Rox Tigers. How could you not? Then he had Core JJ. This guy was so gapping every other support, he was winning MVP of the LCS. You know, that's the region where they just watch like a fucking, I'll just say like a young child instead of what I would say, watching fireworks. Like, oh, woo! That's why all the fucking MVPs are going to be the bloody mid laners and the ADCs, you idiots. To win support, you have to just be like so far ahead. It's like, you're not even the best support. You're just the best player in the league, mate. And everyone behind the scenes said, yeah, this guy's a fucking genius. He had one of his wackest years playing with you, Hans Sammer. And then I'll just leave it on this. And then Mikyx. Mate, you aren't beating the allegations. So let me see what you do with Labrov. If you can level up there, I'll give you a lot of props. I don't think he's a generational talent. He's just a very good support player. But listen, it's my time to. I'm shorting Hans Sammer. I'm buying. I guess in this case, I'm not. I'm shorting the dip. I'm shorting it. It's not coming back. Meanwhile, yes, no one else would have done it, so I don't blame them for this Initialise. I would have signed upset because listen. Once
well, yeah,
more.
But you never doubted the man.
No,
so
exactly. My heart will go on. And also,
ride or die.
And also, people did carry that narrative last year too long. He was really good in the summer playoffs. What are you talking about? Go watch the games. He was like the one winning them the game half the time. So I never got that one. And also, to me, he played with Hillsang. It was straight fire. Mikyx is about the next best thing to do that sort of role. So I always thought that would be mega. So I can't believe you put those two together. But whatever. You gambled. Any last points?
Throw away your worlds as well to do it.
True.
Because, like, you know, all of this, like...
This decision was made pre-Worlds, yeah.
Oh, you're right.
And they knew about it at Worlds, right? Which to me is...
That's bad.
Sure.
That was silly.
That's a really
By the way, that's the one area I'll say right now to all the GMs of the world. Look, it is true that if you already start those perks negotiations, the player will find out. That's just the way it is at the top level. But this is the worst thing. Stop pretending this is La Liga and you can actually tell someone, like, look, you're not here next year, but keep trying to score 20 goals. They don't do it in League. Like, people's morale in the West fucking kills teams. You can't have someone think like... I mean, Mickey basically said it in the interview. It's like he could sense like he's about to be dumped. I'm trying to play Worlds. Like, what are we doing? Like, why would you want that in the back of his head?
And especially when you're a playmaker, right? Like, when you are asked to do relatively risky things, like the way Mickey played for G2 was calculated risks. And at its best, it was phenomenal. I look back to some of the Poppy games internationally, go, damn, the guy's got it. But you are asked to play quite fine margins, and you're doing that and your team doesn't believe in you, or that's what the impression is, or certainly not enough to keep you around for another year. Those fine margins get finer, and that's not fun to play with.
By the way, I'll end the episode just to actually blow Peter's mind with a Bible story, and this will illustrate my point. So lock the doors, everyone. This is all secretly just to set up my religious sermons that I'll be doing each week. So back in the Bible, one of the most famous individuals ever is King David, the king of Israel, right? And one of the interesting things about him was at one point he was a hero. He beat Goliath. He became the king. He was a righteous guy. But there's a famous incident that happened in his life where it's actually a lesson in what temptation does to even good men, which is if you allow temptation into your heart, it will eventually change who you are as a person and how you act. So famously, he's the ultimate example of the idea of like, keep thine eye pure and then your heart will be as well. Because famously what happened is when he was the king, he looked out one day from his like balcony and he saw a woman, she was called like Bathsheba or something, and she was bathing naked. And he just saw this beautiful woman naked. And all you kids now, like, it's just Instagram, isn't it? Like, no, back then that was some wild shit. So he saw her doing that, and what happened is, because he saw her, and she's beautiful. He's thinking, this is my kingdom. I'm fucking David. So what he realised was, I want that woman. And back in the day, brother, if you were the king, you could just say, hey, send for that woman and bring. But the problem is, they told him, like, yeah, sir, because it's like, I'm making like fucking George Bush and that. I mean, like, sir, she already has a husband. And even worse, her husband was an elite soldier in the army. He was called Uriah the Hittite. So here's what King David did. King David arranged, it was like one of the first like fucking conspiracy theories. He arranged for the army to go into a battle scenario. And when Uriah the Hittite stepped forwards, they all stepped back. And he just got killed, but it wasn't David who killed him. He was killed by the enemy, etc. And then Bathsheba was his to take. He could just have her. That's what they did to Mikyx in this team. Now you think back on all those crazy ints. Why is he going in like an idiot? The team aren't even there. Yeah, I think I get it, bro. I think I get it. I think Hans Salmo was going, listen, mate, I want to be here next year. So you can fucking go in on that shit yourself. Oh, I couldn't get there in time. Sorry, bro, Flash was down. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
so
there you go.
Who's Bathsheba in this context? Like, who are you two doing this for?
No, the premise is the premise is that Uriah the Hittite was Mikyx.
I'm with you. So yeah.
Yeah, because they knew he was going. They knew he had to be gone anyway. There you go, Bible studies. So come back again about 12 on Sunday next week. We're going to be having a potluck afterwards and a raffle. And Peter's going to be giving away small jumpers. So that's enough of the Best Damn League show, the new show. And just donate the takes if you're the third person in the box. That's it.